Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Sophy and Wilf, good morning from both of us. Let's get to it.
After another US citizen is shot dead by immigration officers in Minneapolis, two former presidents, Clinton and Obama, say Americans need to stand up and speak out. But the White House isn't backing down.
There's anger among left-wing Labour MPs this morning after Andy Burnham is blocked from running to be an MP, which means he can't challenge Keir Starmer for the leadership.
Deadlines for officers to be on the scene after 999 calls and a new British FBI. More detail on the Home Secretary's overhaul of policing, which is being announced today.
Also coming up, Jackie's here to talk about last night's Premier League shock at the Emirates.
And the curious case of the Chinese general, how a man seen as President Xi's closest military ally is now under investigation.
Good morning and welcome. It's been a heavy weekend in America as the country grapples with the second death of a US citizen at the hands of immigration agents in Minneapolis. In just a matter of weeks, 37-year-old Alex Pretty was shot during a protest on Saturday.
Multiple videos of the incident are now online, but border control officials are refusing to give details of their side of events. The incident has sparked protest and a moment of reckoning for people on both sides of the political spectrum. Former Presidents Obama and Clinton have weighed in, saying that the public have been lied to.
There are extraordinary statements from both of those former presidents. We're going to bring them to you in a moment. But first, here's Martha Kellner.
Alex Pretty was on his knees in this very spot when he was shot dead by immigration officers. Now people fall to the ground to grieve for him. The intensive care nurse killed while trying to resist the ongoing crackdown on migrants in Minneapolis.
I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling unsafe. And I'm feeling confused because it's all so senseless. It's all so senseless.
How much is enough? How many more people have to die? And to the rest of the world, I mean, don't come here. They're having the World Cup here, don't come. Boycott it. Boycott the Olympics. I don't care.
They're doing too much, man, and they keep pushing people,
This video shows Pretty being held on the ground and struck several times with what looks like the butt of a gun. Shot once, then again, and again and again. At least 10 times within 5 seconds. From another angle, you can see federal agents crowding Pretty. He's on his knees. One officer approaches him empty-handed. The same officer runs away with a gun in his hand, moments before you hear any shots. This video shows the aftermath as Pretty's body is being searched. One officer asks, "Where's the gun? Where's the effing gun?" Another officer a few metres away responds, "I have the gun." Pretty had a licence to carry in Minnesota, where it is legal. It seemed he had already been disarmed when he was shot. Yet the Trump administration continues to claim, with no evidence, that he was a domestic terrorist.
He was the greatest.
Buffy worked in a hospital alongside Alex Pretty.
He was just a funny, kind guy. Very dedicated, caring person. So,
How does it make you feel knowing how he died?
yeah, that's pretty hard. We've been under this state of attack for weeks. I'm paranoid when I drive around, checking vehicles all the time.
In case it's ICE agents inside?
Yeah, in case it's ICE agents, trying to figure out, is that suspicious or is it just someone that lives in Minnesota? It's a constant state of fear. I would say it's an occupation.
Immigration officers have been in Minneapolis for just over a month now. In that time, 2 American citizens have been shot dead. A Venezuelan man was shot in the leg, and a car full of children have been tear-gassed. It's becoming incredibly tricky for anyone to claim this operation is successful. Renee Good was killed by an immigration officer who shot her in the head. In a statement about Pretty's death, Good's family said, "We urge all Americans to trust their own eyes as they interpret the horrific video and to call for an absolute end to ICE activity in Minneapolis. It has clearly gone too far and strayed far beyond its stated mission of removing criminal non-citizens from the country. It is time for a hard reset." But Greg Bovino, the man in charge of Border Patrol here, is insistent that his officers are doing a good job.
Think of what those agents were doing on that scene, making a split-second decision. You've had 24 hours to try and armchair quarterback things. That agent had a split second to make a decision. When individuals make poor choices, poor decisions, come into a law enforcement situation.
Arrest them! I just had 7 AK-47s pointed in my face an hour ago. Do something!
Local investigators from Minneapolis finally arrived at the scene 24 hours after Pretty's killing. They said they had previously been blocked from the probe by the federal government's Department of Homeland Security.
Excuse me, sir, has this crime scene been preserved as it usually would have been in this sort of case?
I can't comment on that. Okay.
Have you now got full access to the scene?
We're just here to try to do what we can right now.
Politicians from both sides of the aisle are now demanding an independent investigation. Usually, state and federal bodies would work together in situations like this. Normal rules no longer apply. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Minneapolis.
Well, the reaction in the States, as you would imagine, has really been quite something. It does feel like a bit of a watershed moment. We've heard from 2 former presidents, and it's worth just reflecting on the statements they put out. So this is Barack Obama and also his wife, Michelle. They've issued a joint statement calling Alex Pretty's death a wake-up call to every American. They go on to say, "I would hope that after this most recent tragedy, administration officials will reconsider their approach. Every American should support and draw inspiration from the wave of peaceful protests. They're a timely reminder that ultimately it's up to each of us as citizens to speak out against injustice, protect our basic freedoms and hold our government accountable."
President Clinton released his own statement saying, "Over the course of a lifetime, we face only a few moments where the decisions we make and the actions we take will shape our history for years to come. This is one of them. If we give our freedoms away after 250 years, we might never get them back. It's up to all of us who believe in the promise of American democracy to stand up, speak out, and show that our nation still belongs to we, the people." Very, very significant statements, as you say. To state the obvious, they're both Democrats, former Democrat presidents. So with that in mind, I think a lot of people are watching whether President Bush, former President Bush, comes out with a similar worded statement. But with the greatest respect to all of those former presidents, I think really the people to watch are, in fact, the Republicans in Congress, those that are in a position to potentially hold President Trump to account from this. And I just think that's the area to watch going forward. You actually got a glimpse of it with Greenland as well. This is an even more high-profile topic, but do you start to see the Republican base in Congress start to speak up, speak out on this issue is perhaps the key political thing to watch going forward?
Yeah, that's the one that can make the real difference. To the UK now, because we've had an extraordinary weekend of domestic politics. Left-wing Labour MPs waking up this morning in a pretty mutinous mood after Andy Burnham, the mayor for Greater Manchester, was blocked from running to be an MP and returning to Westminster.
The official line given by Labour is that they want him to stay in his current job because a mayoral contest would cost money and reform could win. But of course, Andy Burnham is also seen as a potential rival to Keir Starmer. And blocking his route to Westminster means he can't launch a leadership challenge. Amanda Acas has the details.
After days of frenzied speculation, the King of the North's attempted march on Westminster has been blocked. Andy Burnham wanted to step down from his job as Greater Manchester Mayor in a bid to fight for the parliamentary seat of Gorton and Denton. But his application has been rejected by Labour's High Command.
The reason that the NEC has taken that decision is because they don't want to inconvenience 2 million people in Greater Manchester who would then have to come out and vote for a new mayor when the current mayor is only halfway through his term. So I know this is disappointing for Andy. There will be opportunities in the future, and I'd love to welcome him into Parliament in due course, but right now isn't the right time.
The NEC, including Sir Keir Starmer, voted 8-1 to block Burnham on the basis that a mayoral by-election would have a substantial cost and risk handing power to another party, quite possibly Reform. Burnham tweeted he's disappointed by the decision and concerned about its potential impact on the important elections ahead. He also complained about the media being informed before he was, though Labour sources say that's categorically untrue. The Mayor has been very open about his leadership ambitions and criticism of the PM. While some backbenchers welcomed the NEC announcement, many on the left are outraged.
I think it's been a terrible decision, and it sort of reeks of where we've been before in the Labour Party. People trying to prevent pluralistic views coming forward and members being allowed to have a democratic say in who they want to be their representative. And it's because there's very deep-seated factionalism inside the Labour Party, and people will do anything to hold on to power.
Voters in Gorton and Denton have mixed views on the decision.
Andy Burnham, there's going to be a problem here, because a lot of people now are going towards reform, aren't they?
Probably to stay with Labour, because always been with Labour.
If you want to stand as an MP, you stand as an MP, so why block somebody that wants to go all the way? Have they got something to hide?
While Andy Burnham now says he wants to support the government, not undermine it, the constant leadership speculation is a clear problem.
I think everybody could do with less psychodrama. I don't think the country will forgive us if we end up doing exactly the same as the Conservative Party. So everybody, my clear message to all colleagues everywhere is we should just calm down.
It's a moment of high jeopardy for the Prime Minister, who'll be hoping to ride out the backlash, consolidate his position and move on. But while keeping the King of the North far away from Westminster has removed the immediate risk of a Burnham leadership challenge, perhaps after the local elections in May, it's blown the party's bitter internal divisions right out into the open. Andy Burnham says he'll fully support whoever wins the candidacy and will focus again on his role as mayor. But while locked out of Parliament, he continues to suck political oxygen away from Downing Street. Amanda Akas, Sky News, Westminster.
Just the most extraordinary story. Alex is here to discuss it. First of all, let's talk about what this is really about. This is really about the leadership, right? You know, forget the kind of mayoral contests and the money and all that. This is about Keir Starmer and his allies being worried about Andy Burnham challenging for the leadership. And I guess there's two ways of looking at this. You could either say that this is a show of strength by Keir Starmer, he doesn't want the psychodrama, he's still got the power, or actually this is a sign of weakness because he's running scared. Where do you think it leaves him?
I think the second one, Sophie. I don't think this is a kind of replay of Kemi Badenoch getting rid of Robert Jenrick. I think this is different. I mean, Andy is ostensibly on the same team. I mean, there are people that say, look, Andy shot himself in the foot here by that intervention pre-conference. He's maybe not on side, and maybe that gave the NEC a bit of a reason to block him. But I think you're right. Whatever happened here, there's a crisis in leadership. You know, if he'd let him in, then he lets in a dangerous rival on the backbenches who could undermine him for months and months. But blocking him has agitated the PLP, who were already really not on side. Labour MPs, the Parliamentary Party. So either way, there was no good thing for Keir Starmer to do here. But I think the dominant feeling is, this is, you know, he saw Andy as a threat and he's tried to get rid of that threat.
It's so interesting because you said that you'd have someone on the backbenches that could be a thorn in your side. It does raise the question as to why you couldn't. And if the question here is, OK, it's not going great, the Premiership at the moment, how do you buy more time so you can turn it around? Why couldn't they have said, we think he'll be a great addition, he's the strongest players on the pitch, we back him doing it, and putting him in the cabinet? I mean, it makes it even harder then, one would think, for Burnham to launch an attack on him for at least 12 months after May. I mean, it does seem, again, quite short-sighted, this tactic to block.
That's definitely a view of why this is seen as a weakness. You know, why not bring him in? Why not give him a really difficult post in cabinet?
Justice.
We were saying justice.
That's what I'd give him.
Or there's the joke of DEFRA.
A breather.
DEFRA is always the long-running joke. Put Andy in DEFRA and not really give him a chance to shine. But I think that's why this is a sign of weakness, because they could have brought him in. They could have almost neutralised him. And when he's in Parliament, there's eyes on him as well. They can keep an eye on him. He could almost even damage himself as well, because he's not universally loved in the Parliamentary Party, really.
Well, also, he might not have won it. I mean, this is going to be a really hard by-election now.
And even harder now.
And even harder now, which is perhaps the worst outcome. Block a candidate, you lose the by-election, maybe you would have lost it anyway. But it falls completely at your feet if that happens.
And it's tied to the Prime Minister. You know, Keir Starmer was at this meeting. He voted against him. Yeah. So he can't distance himself now if they do lose this. It's going to be squarely at his feet.
Yeah, maybe the power move would be Keir Starmer to vote for him and then get everyone else to block him.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just quite surprised he was at that meeting. I mean, I thought he could have said, oh, well, I'm Prime Minister, I'm kind of above all of this, but yeah, there we go.
Didn't you say as well Shabana Mahmood abstained?
Yeah, which she can do because she's the chair, but still, it's probably very sensible move there, just abstaining, you know, keeping your hands clean, nothing to do with me.
Well, on keeping your hands clean, just another quick final point, which is, you know, we've said this before, the person who wields the sword doesn't often take the crown. There'll be other challengers who are already MPs who'll be rather pleased this morning, because I don't think all of this reflects that well on Andy Burnham either. Certainly, as you were saying, Alex, when he challenged just ahead of conference last year, it didn't look like you're a team player, whereas he's doing the dirty work for others, essentially.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. We'll have more on this, including, of course, with Douglas Alexander, who's the Secretary of State for Scotland. So interested to hear his take on that in a few moments.
Let's talk policing now, because today we're getting more details of what's being described as the creation of a British FBI. The idea is that a new national police service will be created to focus on things like counter-terrorism and fraud, so that local forces can concentrate more on everyday crime.
Well, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is going to be announcing full details later, also including these new targets for police. So they have to respond to 999 calls in 15 minutes in urban areas and 20 minutes in rural areas. Martin Brunt's got more.
Lots of shoplifting, says the owner of this convenience store, but the police do little to help stop it or pursue the criminals. He's had to install an expensive AI system to alert him to thieves.
No matter how much security and technology we implement, they always seem to beat us. You know, it's virtually impossible to stop them, and it's almost become a free-for-all and a right for them. And you know, some of them see this as a way of life, and you know, they're like, why should I work when I can just go out and take as much as I want without any punishment?
7 miles away, this long-established pet shop has a similar story to tell.
Recently, in the last few weeks, we have had a bit of a rise in the shoplifting. It is affecting us quite a bit. Nearly every day now we're seeing it happen.
What's been the police response?
Unfortunately, because the margin of how much they've stolen is not enough, the police will not pursue any more action.
While many crime rates have been falling, shoplifting has surged, up 13% last year. It's one of those everyday crimes like phone theft and antisocial behaviour. The Home Secretary has vowed they'll be tackled much better by new neighbourhood police teams, part of a major restructuring of policing in England and Wales.
I think if people feel that things like shop theft, antisocial behaviour, if they feel like they're going unpunished, which is how it feels across large parts of the country today, it really tears away at the fabric of our society.
The biggest reform will be the merging of the current 43 police forces into a dozen or so mega constabularies, which will focus on serious crimes such as murder, rape and county lines drug supply. And there's to be a new FBI-style national police service.
It will be their job to go after terrorists, serious organised criminals, fraudsters. You know, we need a really agile national service that can keep pace with the international criminals who change their business model all the time.
But not everyone is convinced the major overhaul will work.
I think the problem is they're throwing an awful lot up into the air and seeing what sticks. You're going to have significant disruption in policing for the next 10 years whilst they figure out what these reforms actually look like in practice, merging all of the functions and disrupting local policing in the process. So I think they need to urgently reconsider some of these things.
The new measures will be detailed in a government white paper to be published later today. But the changes are unlikely to be fully implemented until 2034. Only then will the public be able to judge if they feel safer. Martin Brunt, Sky News, South London.
There's an awful lot of political news around this morning, as you might have realised already. Secretary of State for Scotland, Douglas Alexander, joins us now. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
So why was Andy Burnham blocked from running in this by-election?
Well, yesterday a decision was reached by the National Executive Committee officers who had to weigh the following judgment. Firstly, the rule book of the Labour Party that has an assumption against a sitting mayor or sitting police and crime commissioner standing. That's why you have to ask special permission if you're a serving mayor. Secondly, the fact that we've already got critical electoral contests happening in Scotland, in Wales and across England. If we had granted that decision yesterday, if the decision had been taken by the National Executive Committee, we would also have faced a contest in more than 20 parliamentary constituencies in the Manchester mayoralty. And so I think the judgment was that, if you like, there would be a lot of time, a lot of energy and a lot of resource committed to what would be judged to be an unnecessary contest at a time when we're facing critical elections in Scotland. We, in 101 days' time, have an SNP government that we want to see defeated.
You're missing out a very key reason here, aren't you?
Tell me.
You were missing out the fact that Andy Burnham might challenge Keir Starmer for the leadership.
Well, if you...
I know it,
yeah.
You know it,
so,
everyone watching knows it.
Okay,
why won't you say it?
I don't often compare myself to Elizabeth I, but I don't have a window into other men's souls. There was a judgment reached by, 9 people on the National Executive Committee yesterday. There'll be an opportunity to speak to the Prime Minister later today. My own judgment...
Come on.
Let me make the point. My own judgment is that this was more about focus than about factionalism, because the reality is... well, if the National Union of Journalists were represented yesterday, they would definitely have voted for Andy to get an exceptional pass to be able to stand in this by-election, because I know there's a scenario whereby, if he had stood, there would be a focus for the coming weeks and months on exactly the questions that you're suggesting.
I don't want to move on.
And in their wisdom, the National Executive Committee had to reach a judgment as to where the best interests of the Labour Party lay.
I don't want to move on until we've had the honesty to admit that one of the key reasons in this is because you didn't want Andy Burnham to challenge Keir Starmer for the leadership. That's true, isn't it?
Well, the judgment was made by the National Executive Committee. They reached their judgment yesterday. My best judgment is that there were considerations in relation to, if you like, what the future scenarios would be. Not just that there would be an unnecessary by-election, but also probably months of psychodrama. Exactly the kind of questions you're asking me, Sophie.
Why won't you say the words? It's like Voldemort and Harry Potter. It's like you won't say something because you're scared of it. That this is about Andy Burnham being a potential challenger for the leadership.
Well, Andy signalled very clearly his ambition to lead the Labour Party.
It's not a killing curse on you. Just say the words. Go on. That's why, isn't it? Be honest with people.
Well, let me use the words. Andy signalled very clearly his ambition to lead the Labour Party in the future. I think that's a perfectly honourable ambition. The National Executive Committee reached a judgment that the time is not right for Andy to come back to Westminster, not least because he's only served 2 of his 4 years in his second term as Manchester Mayor. And they're allowed to reach that judgment, not just according to the rules, but also looking at the politics. We've got critical elections in the next 101 days. If you're saying it would be better in those elections in Scotland or in Wales or across England to spend the next 3 months having a version of this conversation, you're entitled to that judgment, but I would respectfully disagree.
I am absolutely not saying that. I'm not making no judgment on what is the right or wrong. This is not my, this is not my rodeo, right? What I'm saying is, I think you should be honest about why the judgment was made, and I don't think you are.
So it's not my first rodeo, and to decide is to divide. Whenever you make a decision like this, those were words used by Tony Blair, there's always going to be an element in politics where people attribute motives to you, give explanations as to why you've made that judgment. I expect the Prime Minister will have words to say when he's out and about today. He was part of the decision. He was in the room. He'll speak for himself. From my point of view, it strikes me that, if you like, focus more than factionalism was a very material consideration.
What's that mean, focus more than factionalism?
That we've got 101 days to try and defeat Reform, defeat the Greens and defeat the SNP. If we spend the next 3 months having a version of this conversation...
Let me just finish
the sentence. Because there would have been 3 months, in all likelihood, in my judgment, of psychodrama. Who's up, who's down, who's getting on with who's standing against who. Would that have been in the best interest of the Labour Party? Honestly, I don't think it would have been.
Can you clear something up for me? Because Andy Burnham said yesterday that the fact that the media was informed of the NEC decision before I was tells you everything you need to know about the way the Labour Party is being run these days. You would think that over 30 years of service would count for something, but sadly not. Is that true?
So my understanding, and it's only my understanding, is that the General Secretary tried to call Andy immediately after the meeting. But you said it's not your rodeo, it's mine. It's not my first rodeo. It wouldn't be the first time that what was supposed to be a confidential meeting about internal matters of the Labour Party with a large number of people in the room leaked out. So if that happened, that's wrong. I would have hoped that Andy would have been done the courtesy of hearing first and directly. But as I say, having been in plenty of Labour Party meetings where information's leaked out, perhaps that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, Beth Rigby's our political editor, been posting some of the timeline this morning. So 11:56 was when Pippa Creer, the journalist, posted the news. The call came at 12:12, which is obviously after, and then the email at 12:20. It feels like the Labour Party has shifted its position because they came up very strongly yesterday saying that that was categorically untrue, what Andy Burnham said. It feels like the line's changed this morning.
I honestly don't have the timeline that you're describing. What I was assured was that the General Secretary of the Labour Party endeavoured to speak to Andy at the end of the meeting.
But you acknowledge that, you know, he has a reason to feel aggrieved if that didn't happen.
Yeah, totally. Andy's a friend of mine, and I think if that happened, that's obviously unfortunate. I hope that it wouldn't happen again. But as I say, it may not have been the officers of the party. It may well have been that someone in the room contacted a friend, contacted a journalist. I'm afraid these things happen.
Good morning for West Streeting.
I hope a good morning for all of us if we focus on the job in hand, which is to recognise that there's something much bigger than the ambitions of any individual at stake over the next 101 days. Let's be clear, reform won't tear our country apart. They are a force that needs to be reckoned with in a very, very significant series of electoral challenges that we face. And so whether it's Wes, whether it's Andy, whether it's Keir, whether it's myself, all of us should be laser-focused on, frankly, something much bigger and much more consequential than the insider baseball at Westminster.
There's one other story this morning that I was hoping to get your reflections on, and that's the situation that we're seeing in the United States, because we've had another person killed by immigration agents. And what we've seen overnight is two former presidents coming out saying that people need to speak up. So Bill Clinton saying, over the course of a lifetime, we face only a few moments where the decisions we make and the actions we take will shape our history. He said it's up to all of us who believe in the promise of American democracy to stand up and speak out. So I guess my question is, you know, will you stand up and speak out against these killings?
Well, I've seen very troubling videos, and I've seen both the statements of former President Obama and former President Clinton. Firstly, we have a profoundly different approach to policing in the United Kingdom. Thankfully, we have policing by consent. Secondly, you can be assured that there is, if you like, a regular dialogue between the Foreign Office and between Downing Street and with the administration in the United States. What form those discussions take, I'm not sure, and frankly, policing is an internal matter for the United States. But if you're asking me, was I horrified by what I saw? 100%.
Douglas Alexander, thank you very much indeed. Lots more to come. We're going to be talking about those policing reforms as well with a former Chief Superintendent at the Met Police. That's coming up next.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. Hello again. Let's get you up to speed with the news this morning. The US President Donald Trump has said the White House is reviewing everything as anger increases over the shooting of the intensive care nurse Alex Pretty in Minneapolis. It comes as former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton have urged Americans to stand up and speak out about what happened.
Andy Burnham says he's disappointed after being denied permission to run as Labour's candidate in the upcoming Gorton and Denton by-election. Labour's national executive says there were concerns over the costs involved in fighting a mayoral race in Greater Manchester.
Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is announcing a raft of policing reforms later today. She'll be talking to the Commons later today, expected to announce the number of forces across the country are going to be cut in order to set up a new national police service.
Now, we wanted to give you an update from Plymouth, where a young man called Drew Perham was reported missing after he didn't return from a night out last Friday. He was only 24. And we can tell you now that a 19-year-old has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
Well, Oliver's here to give us a bit more details of the story. Oliver, we know you're limited in what you can say about this now, but what do we know about this case?
So Drew Perham was last seen at about 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday after he went out on this night out in Plymouth on Friday. The authorities then, overnight Saturday into Sunday, launched a huge investigation. There was a police presence seen in the marina, in the Millbay Marina part of Plymouth. On Sunday, a body then sadly recovered from the water. The authorities say that the identification is still ongoing, but online, Drew's friends and families have been leaving tributes saying he was somebody who loved adventure, loved his dog, somebody who loved to go travelling. Meanwhile, the authorities say a 19-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder. He remains in police custody, but the police say this is a fast-paced investigation. The authorities are going to be keeping a presence in that part of town for a number of days yet to come, but they're urging people online not to speculate, with the authorities saying it's really not helpful.
Yeah, so we'll bring you more information on that, when we get it. As Oliver was saying, obviously, we're going to try and stick to the official channels here, not what's just been reported and speculated on online, but a young man there losing his life in Plymouth. Thanks, Oliver.
Right, let's take a closer look now at the upcoming overhaul of policing in England and Wales.
We can talk you through some of the details of what that plan is going to be. So they're going to cut the number of police forces, so local policing down from 43 to around a dozen. That's what we think anyway. The exact number hasn't been brought out.
A new national police service, which is being dubbed the British FBI, will be created and is expected to focus on things like counter-terrorism and fraud.
And also, this is an interesting one. The Home Secretary is going to be given new powers to get rid of chief constables who are deemed to be failing.
And every officer in England and Wales will be required to hold a licence to be able to continue working, in a move similar to schemes that already exist for lawyers and doctors. Well, we're joined now by the former Chief Superintendent at the Met, Dal Babu. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. On the surface, this headline point, fewer regional police forces and a central one for certain crimes like counter-terrorism. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. It's long overdue. We have 43 forces. Some of them have 1,000 officers. Others have, like Metropolitan Police, have over 30,000 officers. So the Met accounts for 30%. The other 42 account for 70%. So it really needs to be rationalised. And I think if you ask your average person who your chief constable is, they probably wouldn't know who their chief constable is. So this makes a lot of sense, and I think it's long overdue. I think people who are interested in policing, understand policing, will see this really makes a lot of sense. The challenge we will have is policing becomes political, and then you get politicians involved, and they have views not necessarily based on any great understanding of policing.
I'm interested, you say there that it's going to become more political, and I just wonder why you think that's going to be. Is it because of the structural change, like you're going to have this kind of British FBI or whatever you're calling it, which will be more linked to kind of national politics, or because the Home Secretary's now got this new power to kind of get rid of police chiefs she doesn't like?
Yeah, so we have police and crime commissioners who actually have the opportunity at the moment to make a decision about whether they get rid of a police chief constable, and we sort of saw that in West Midlands play out, where the Home Secretary wanted to get rid of the chief constable, and ultimately it was the police crime commissioner who made that.
That's the kind of Maccabee Tel Aviv case that we saw.
That's right, yes, yes. So there's some concerns about how all that information unfolded. So the new powers will come directly to the Home Secretary. But if you look at police and crime commissioners, the first election, only 11% of the population turned out to vote for them. If you ask your average person, who is your police and crime commissioner, I think the answer would be they haven't got a clue. So, I think that's a really good decision. It's going to potentially save £100 million. So I think these changes make a lot of sense, and it will help rationalise policing and make it more efficient and effective.
Is it important as well to free up the local constabularies to focus on local crime? I mean, what difference do you think it will make to crime statistics if they're not having to spend so much time on national issues?
Yeah, so this is about, the envelope will be the same. This is not about additional resources, but it's about making sure that those police services at the moment that have responsibility for national responsibility, for example, counter-terrorism, which the Met Police have, it will come down to this new organisation. And so you potentially have the opportunity to work more closely with real neighbourhood policing.
And how I'm interested in how people will decide what crime should be investigated by both. I mean, I'm thinking, for example, like phone theft, right? That most people would see as a local crime, local forces. But I guess a lot of it is kind of organised crime as well, isn't it? Right. So how do you kind of split it?
Well, I think that's where the devil will be in the detail. But if you've got a organised crime which is facilitating and handling thousands of phones, then it might be something that the national organisation takes responsibility for. And we know with online crime, you might have a victim in sort of the south of England and the perpetrators might be in the north of England. So there's an opportunity to be more organised than we are at the moment. So I think, overall, I think these are really good ideas. The devil will be in the detail, but ultimately we're going to have a much more effective police service with the resources we've got. I think the other thing we have, which I always found bizarre, is 43 forces end up spending, have different uniforms. If you go around the country, you'll see each police officer will have a different uniform, and a lot of it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So if you were able to rationalise one uniform, you'd be able to get a better deal. The same with police cars. Each police car is delivered differently. There's an opportunity to try and do that in terms of economies of scale. So I think there'll be significant savings in this.
I didn't know that had different.
No,
I guess there's a sort of standard form, though, is there? It's quite similar.
It's similar. They all got police on their uniform, but with the exception of that, if you go along, you'll see there's sort of different logos, and so that they all look slightly different. So if you, for example, if there's mutual aids, there's a big march or something, you're going to central London, you'll see police officers who will have a slightly different uniforms. So there's an opportunity to rationalise that.
Just finally, in terms of, it's funny people compare this phrase, like a British FBI. And clearly in America, you have a federal organisation like the FBI that covers all the states. But then, in fact, within individual states and indeed cities, you have very different police forces. What I'm getting from what you're just saying is, even though we're now going to have a clear national versus regional split, that actually the regional stuff will be more uniform as well. And that's something, I guess, that you would welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Because with the internet, we end up more and more with people committing crimes in one area, the victims are in another. So you're actually going to have some sort of rationalisation of intelligence, of sharing information. And sometimes that can be quite challenging, trying to get information from different parts of the police service. So, overall, I think it's a great idea. I think the thing that worries me is politicians jumping in and then sort of it's a bit like closing your local hospital. I can imagine this kind of debate is we want to keep our own police service, and you start asking people who, what the details of it, they probably don't know a great deal, and you then have these big campaigns to keep local police.
Yeah, this is it, exactly. Yes, like the hospitals is a really good example of that. Really interesting to talk. Thanks very much for coming on and giving us your take on these new policing reforms.
Now, Instagram doctors, wellness influencers and even celebrity fitness gurus have fast become the go-to for health advice as waiting lists in the health service hit record highs. Well, despite their popularity, trained medical professionals have warned against relying on social media for medical information.
We'll talk now to Dr. Deborah Cohen, who's a journalist. She's also the author of Bad Influence, How the Internet Hijacked Our Health, and she joins us today. So how has the Internet hijacked our health?
Lots of different ways. If you think about what a lot of the social media platforms are, they're effectively designed for entertainment and they're actually massively commercialised spaces. So there are lots of people offering advice, even medical professionals who have perhaps big conflicts of interest. They're there to sell. They tell us we're broken and they give us the protocols to fix it. And there's been a massive expansion during the pandemic of, obviously we saw the pressures of the on the NHS, but a massive expansion of consumer health, so people can go and buy whatever test they want. We've seen online pharmacies. People can go and get almost whatever prescription drug they want. We've got a ban of direct-to-consumer advertising on prescription drugs in this country. So you can advertise in medical journals. I used to work on the British Medical Journal. So you can advertise to doctors if you're a drug company, but that's almost, I wouldn't say redundant, but with influencers, they're talking about the drugs, they've got relationships with online pharmacies, paid relationships with online pharmacies. So we've got all these commercial influencers sort of coming at us at the same time as having algorithms. So if you hover over, let's say, an ADHD video, you'll get more and more of that, or you hover over testosterone.
Oh, wow,
you get more
that's
and more
interesting.
of that.
So it's actually feeding through what you're interested in and then almost basically pumping more of it towards you.
Yeah, and I spoke to, when I wrote the book, and literally I didn't know what I would find. And the reason I wrote it, actually, was lots of friends were coming to me. So I trained to be a doctor initially. And as a journalist, you're looking at, well, why is someone saying this thing to me? You know, you're naturally quite sceptical. And you sort of want to know what the benefits of a treatment are, what the harms are, what any uncertainties are. Does this condition even exist? And who's making the money? So that was the reason I sort of wrote it. And I spoke to about 200 people during the research and hundreds of sort of academic research articles. I didn't really know what I'd find. And so it was a really interesting journey. I kept an open mind. And obviously there's good with social media. So one surgeon, breast cancer surgeon actually had breast cancer herself, said to me she found a community of support on social media. So when she was going through chemotherapy, she had the nausea and sickness, people would offer advice on what to eat and drink, and people would send her blankets. But on the other side, so you've got the well-meaning people. On the other side, there's huge commercial interests of influencers selling you stuff.
Net, over the last decade, has technology improved outcomes for people? I mean, you can talk about breast cancer there, we could talk about prostate cancer. The awareness has been transformed, I think, in part because of it. And then you've got tech as well, which, you know, whether people are wearing smartwatches that track their heartbeat and things, I don't, as you look down, but too much technology plugged in every day. But overall, even if the messaging can be imperfect, has it improved our outcomes or not?
And that's what we don't know, because, and I describe it as one big public health experiment, because normally what you do, if you want to know how well something works, you do what's called a randomised control trial. Clinical trial, we've heard about them. That's how we tested vaccines during the pandemic. That's how drugs, prescription drugs, as doctors, get onto the market. But most of these things don't have any of that evidence behind them. So, for example, one thing that people have seen is a lot of these glucose monitors for people who are well. Normally you have them in type 1, type 2 diabetes. It's used to help people use their insulin correctly. But there's a much bigger market in wellness. And our bodies automatically adjust our glucose levels. So, and people sort of, and what doctors actually said to me is, people will say, well, look, I eat a banana and my glucose goes up, but when I eat a burger, it stays flat. So they switch their behaviour. And what you'd normally want to do is you'd want to do a trial to work out, actually, if you're healthy, monitoring your glucose day to day actually helps you long term, or what it does. And so there's big uncertainty around a lot of this.
Great stuff. Thanks so much for joining us. Very interesting.
Now, we're going to talk about nightlife now. I don't know if you're a fan of a night out, if you're an early bird,
used to be
early
in my
to bed.
youth, not anymore.
Because we found out where in the UK is apparently the night out hotspot.
So this is data from Uber, and they've been tracking where has the most taxi rides between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m.
10 a.m, that's a really good night out.
That's a proper one. And Edinburgh topped the list. Glasgow came in second, London was third. Obviously, lots of different factors here. If you've got better public transport, you might not need a taxi. If it's cold, you might need a taxi.
Exactly, that's what I thought.
But yeah, credit to Edinburgh there, topping the list.
Yeah, Edinburgh, there you go. Let us know. I'm interested in your views on this as well. You can email mornings@sky.uk. I was convinced it was going to be Newcastle, because whenever I've been to Newcastle, it feels like every single person in the entirety of Newcastle is on the streets going out. Like, it's amazing.
But also they're pretty brave, so they don't always get a taxi.
Yeah, that's true. Or wear a coat.
Yeah, although when us Southerners go up there, we take a taxi.
Yeah.
It's too chilly.
And a big coat.
But what I will also say on this as well is their window, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m, will also be distorted by people like us that get up to go to work before 4 a.m.
That's true.
And that is not for a night out, alas.
Yeah, sadly.
The opposite. But
that's a very good point. Let's find out how the weather's up to. If you're planning a night out in the chilly weather, you might be interested in this one. We can find out.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
It's looking pretty unsettled all week, with potentially disruptive wind and rain and snow on northern hills. It's windy in the west, with rain spreading across Ireland. Most other places are chilly, rather murky, a few drizzly outbreaks, mainly in the north. It doesn't sound great, does it? All of Ireland is going to be wet by midday. Northern Ireland and Cornwall are also going to see a lot of rain, and the bulk of Britain looks grey, with a few wintry showers, mainly in the northeast. It's going to be chilly and windy in the north and west, with gales possible in the northwestern coasts.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Don't want to do this next time.
I'm sorry, I feel your pain, but we'll just push through the pain, OK? It's temporary.
We have to.
It's temporary.
Imagine being a Palace fan or a Wednesday fan. These Arsenal supporters, they don't know how lucky they got it, honestly.
Well, trust me, we do. For the last 20 years, we sadly do. But, you know.
Just not this morning. We're going to be talking about a couple of real wonder goals from Manchester United. Great performance. It was a great match all round. If you were a neutral watching that, you think, whoa, the Premier League's great. Not if you're an Arsenal fan, probably feeling a little bit nervous this morning because the title race is getting a bit too close. We'll be talking about that after the break.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
...is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor.
The reality of life under Russian fire.
People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming. I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war.
Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment.
We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful. With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO.
This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force.
This is routine training for NATO, But should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real. Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans. The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
That was mean of the director to say, let's get a single of Wilfred and see his pain a bit more.
I mean, I'm resigned to this. They deserved it, sadly.
If you're wondering...
The key thing is, will it be a fire up our proverbial to get us going from here?
If you're wondering what's going on, this is because Arsenal lost yesterday, so Wilf is in mourning, and Jackie's not too happy either.
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing a black shirt. No, Arsenal lost to Manchester United, their first home defeat of the season, and actually United's first win at Arsenal in 8 years. I mean, they're quite rare. And it's been so hard for people to go there and even score goals, and Manchester United scored 3 of them. So I think the big chat this morning amongst Arsenal fans is, how nervous did they look yesterday? Was it nerves? Was it pressure? Was it just one of those things where United really outplayed them? Or are they feeling the nerves at the top of the league and knowing that 7 points, well, it could have been so much more, given that in the last few weeks they've lost yesterday, they drew with Forest, they drew with Liverpool, and there was 3 opportunities to really, really stretch away with other results going your way in previous weeks, and they just didn't. Mm-hmm. And then there was that opportunity yesterday to even go away with a point, and they didn't. So I'm wondering what Mikel Arteta's going to say to his players this morning. So we should show the wonder goals from United. That's the first one from Patrick Dorgo, and Gary Neville said, that is the goal of a lifetime. Like, you probably never score that goal again. It was just so perfect. And that was to give them a 2-1 lead. And really, Arsenal up against it from then on in. It was funny, because Arsenal scored, and it was like they then became the more nervous team, and it gave United a bit of confidence to up their game, and having equalised and then going ahead like that. They really had their tails up, and you just thought, oh, this isn't looking very good. And there was real desperation at the end, and Arsenal did manage to scramble an equaliser, and it was so near the end, you thought, OK, this is going to be a draw. And then there was another wonder goal, an absolute super goal from Mateus Cunha.
Oh, look at that.
A stunner. And there's not much you can do about that if you're the goalkeeper.
I mean, the other story here is what a bounce United have had under Michael Carrick.
Absolutely a bounce under Michael Carrick. When he took charge the last time, he beat Arsenal, and he was undefeated in 3 matches, 2 wins and a draw. Now it's beat City last week, beat Arsenal, and nobody really expected that yesterday, apart from maybe a handful of United fans and maybe Michael Carrick. But, he said they have been the best team in the league all season, clearly. And we've gone here today and played really well. But I think it's going to be really hard for Arsenal to go into training or warm down or whatever they do this morning and sort of process that in a way, because they got so used to winning and so used to winning at the Emirates that was a real shocker and will take a bit of digestion. But you look at that as well and think, where are their wonder goals coming from? Why haven't they scored more goals? Why aren't they scoring more goals? I mean, the 2 Arsenal goals, one was an own goal and one was a real scramble. But it seems like they don't have an out-and-out.
It's better to have a blip in January than in May. That's my positive spin.
It just feels like no one wants to win it, to me.
Yeah,
everyone's choking. What's going on?
Yeah. So Arsenal 50, Man City on 46, Villa on 46. We should mention Villa, actually.
Yeah.
All the away teams won yesterday, all of them, including Villa at Newcastle. And that was a really good goal as well from Emi Buendia to keep them very much in the hunt for the title. Now, I know Unai Emery said, we're not contenders, but they are. they are contenders because they're right up there.
They can score goals like that. Great goal.
No, absolutely. We should
other football
mention what's going. I mean, I've said all the away teams won in the Premier League yesterday. We should mention what's going on in Scotland because they've got a real title race on their hands, and for once, it's not just between Rangers and Celtic. Hearts are leading the title race, and we should say kudos to Martin O'Neill for the job that he's done since going in as interim manager for a second time, and he has really lifted Celtic. He did stress before their match yesterday against Hearts, against the league leaders, he stressed the importance of having to win that, and they didn't, but they could have. I mean, they were leading 2-1, but the Hearts equaliser put paid to that. Claudia Braga, right at the end, it was very, very last minute, and that was enough to sort of keep a good distance between them and Celtic. So
does the neutral want Heart? When was the last time it wasn't Rangers or Celtic? A long time
That
ago.
is a good question. Google.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
I mean, that is a really long time. Rangers won, though, so, you know, it's down to 4 points. Yeah, so 4, 6. Anyway, we should also say we know now who's going to be in the Super Bowl, if that's your interest, NFL. Who's going to be in the Super Bowl final? It's going to be the New England Patriots. Again, they've won it 6 times, a record equaling 6 times. They beat the Denver Broncos, and it was a blizzard. Seattle Seahawks also winning through to beat the Los Angeles Rams. But imagine playing football like that.
That's unbelievable.
I think that's probably maybe normal at this time of year in certain parts of the States. I mean,
well, there's also a real cold.
Seen lots of those matches.
Yeah, I was not often out playing in the cold, though.
It's
a big advantage, actually, this time of year for the colder-based teams to be ready for this type of...
But it's a very low-scoring match.
Low-scoring match.
Yeah,
well,
you can see why. Yeah.
Jackie, great stuff. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Good morning. It is 8 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Richard Frost.
With Sophy and Wilfred, very good morning from me as well. Lots to get to.
After another US citizen is shot dead by immigration officers in Minneapolis, two former presidents, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, say Americans need to stand up and speak out. The White House, though, isn't backing down.
There's anger across left-wing parts of the Labour Party as Andy Burnham is blocked from running to be an MP, which means he can't challenge Keir Starmer for the leadership.
Deadlines for officers to be on scene after 999 calls and a new so-called British FBI. We're going to have more details on the Home Secretary's overhaul of policing announced today.
Also coming up, Jackie's here for the sport, sadly. We'll be talking about yesterday's Premier League action where Manchester United beat Arsenal.
And we'll also be discussing the curious case of the Chinese general, how a man seen as President Xi's closest military ally is now under investigation.
A very good morning to you. It's been a heavy weekend in America as the country grapples with a second death of a US citizen at the hands of immigration agents in Minneapolis in just a matter of weeks. 37-year-old nurse Alex Pretty was shot during a protest on Saturday.
Well, there's been multiple videos of the incident that are now online. Immigration officials, though, were refusing to give details of their side of events. And the second killing has, of course, sparked protests and a moment of reckoning, really, for people on all sides of the political spectrum. Former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton have both weighed in, saying the public had been lied to.
We'll bring you some of those statements in a moment. But first, Martha Kellner has this report from Minneapolis.
Alex Pretty was on his knees in this very spot when he was shot dead by immigration officers. Now people fall to the ground to grieve for him. The intensive care nurse killed while trying to resist the ongoing crackdown on migrants in Minneapolis.
I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling unsafe. And I'm feeling confused because it's all so senseless. It's all so senseless.
How much is enough? How many more people have to die? And to the rest of the world, don't come here. They're having the World Cup here, don't come. Boycott it. Boycott the Olympics. I don't care.
They're doing too much, man, and they keep pushing people,
This video shows Pretty being held on the ground and struck several times with what looks like the butt of a gun. Shot once, then again, and again and again. At least 10 times within 5 seconds. From another angle, you can see federal agents crowding Pretty. He's on his knees. One officer approaches him empty-handed. The same officer runs away with a gun in his hand, moments before you hear any shots. This video shows the aftermath as Pretty's body is being searched. One officer asks, "Where's the gun? Where's the effing gun?" Another officer a few metres away responds, "I have the gun." Pretty had a licence to carry in Minnesota, where it is legal. It seemed he had already been disarmed when he was shot. Yet the Trump administration continues to claim, with no evidence, that he was a domestic terrorist.
He was the greatest.
Buffy worked in a hospital alongside Alex Pretty.
He was just a funny, kind guy. Very dedicated, caring person. So,
how does it make you feel knowing how he died?
Yeah, that's pretty hard. We've been under this state of attack for weeks. I'm paranoid when I drive around, checking vehicles all the time.
In case it's ICE agents inside?
Yeah, in case it's ICE agents, trying to figure out, is that suspicious or is it just someone that lives in Minnesota? It's a constant state of fear. I would say it's an occupation.
Immigration officers have been in Minneapolis for just over a month now. In that time, 2 American citizens have been shot dead. A Venezuelan man was shot in the leg, and a car full of children have been tear-gassed. It's becoming incredibly tricky for anyone to claim this operation is successful. Renee Good was killed by an immigration officer who shot her in the head. In a statement about Pretty's death, Good's family said, "We urge all Americans to trust their own eyes as they interpret the horrific video and to call for an absolute end to ICE activity in Minneapolis. It has clearly gone too far and strayed far beyond its stated mission of removing criminal non-citizens from the country. It is time for a hard reset." But Greg Bovino, the man in charge of Border Patrol here, is insistent that his officers are doing a good job.
Think of what those agents were doing on that scene, making a split-second decision. You've had 24 hours to try and armchair quarterback things. That agent had a split second to make a decision. When individuals make poor choices, poor decisions, come into a law enforcement situation.
Arrest them! I just had 7 AK-47s pointed in my face an hour ago. Do something!
Local investigators from Minneapolis finally arrived at the scene 24 hours after Pretty's killing. They said they had previously been blocked from the probe by the federal government's Department of Homeland Security.
Excuse me, sir, has this crime scene been preserved as it usually would have been in this sort of case?
I can't comment on that, okay.
Have you now got full access to the scene?
We're just here to try to do what we can right now.
Politicians from both sides of the aisle are now demanding an independent investigation. Usually, state and federal bodies would work together in situations like this. Normal rules no longer apply. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Minneapolis.
Well, as we mentioned in the introduction, former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton have issued statements relating to this overnight. Let's bring you what President Obama has said first of all. He said, "I would hope that after this most recent tragedy, administration officials will reconsider their approach. Every American should support and draw inspiration from the wave of peaceful protests. They are a timely reminder that ultimately it's up to each of us as citizens to speak out against injustice, protect our basic freedoms and hold our government accountable."
We've also, as Wilfred was saying, heard from the former President Bill Clinton as well. So his statement, he said, over the course of a lifetime, we faced only a few moments where the decisions we make and the actions we take will shape our history for years to come. This is one of them. If we give our freedoms away after 250 years, we might never get them back. He goes on to say, it's up to all of us who believe in the promise of American democracy to stand up, speak out and show that our nation still belongs to we, the people.
And as we mentioned before, I think a lot of people are now wondering to see if former President Bush speaks out as well, because to state the obvious, Clinton and Obama obviously are Democrats. Will a high-profile former Republican president step out to echo a similar message or not? But perhaps more relevantly, all due respect to all of those former presidents, is what Republicans in Congress say from here. And there are signs that this is starting to cross over into an area where they then wish to hold President Trump to account. Remains to be seen how effective they are if that happens. But both on Greenland and more specifically on this, it's starting to slightly change the tone of little comments we're seeing. Just on the flip side, Obama's statement there spoke about peaceful protests. One wonders whether there would be way more of that if not for the cold snap we mentioned in the footage from the NFL that we showed just at the back end of last hour. There's a huge cold snap going on in the US, and that might actually be containing some of the potential protests that might otherwise have happened. A lot of people pointing to that as well. The weather terrible there at the moment.
Yeah, really interesting. As Wilf was saying as well, all eyes on what Republicans do in Congress, and all eyes back here in the UK on what Labour MPs are going to do, particularly those on the kind of so-called soft left of the party, because I have to say, many of them seem in a pretty mutinous mood this morning after Andy Burnham, the Mayor for Greater Manchester, was blocked from running to be an MP and returning to Westminster.
The official line given by Labour is that they want him to stay in his current job because a mayoral contest would cost money and reform could win it. But of course, Andy Burnham is also seen as a potential rival to Keir Starmer, and blocking his route to Westminster means he can't launch a leadership challenge. We asked Minister Douglas Alexander about this earlier.
Andy signalled very clearly his ambition to lead the Labour Party in the future. I think that's a perfectly honourable ambition. The National Executive Committee reached a judgment that the time is not right for Andy to come back to Westminster, not least because he's only served 2 of his 4 years in his second term as Manchester Mayor, and they're allowed to reach that judgment, not just according to the rules, but also looking at the politics. We've got critical elections in the next 101 days. If you're saying it would be better in those elections in Scotland or in Wales or across England to spend the next 3 months having a version of this conversation, you're entitled to that judgment, but I would respectfully disagree.
I am absolutely not saying that. I'm not making no judgment on what is the right or wrong. This is not my, this is not my rodeo, right? What I'm saying is, I think you should be honest about why the judgment was made, and I don't think you are.
So it's not my first rodeo, and to decide is to divide. Whenever you make a decision like this, those were words used by Tony Blair, there's always going to be an element in politics where people attribute motives to you, give explanations as to why you've made that judgment. There would have been 3 months, in all likelihood, in my judgment, of psychodrama. Who's up, who's down, who's getting on with who's standing against who. Would that have been in the best interest of the Labour Party? Honestly, I don't think it would have been.
Douglas Alexander, speaking to us a little bit earlier, we've got Alex here as well. He wouldn't say directly that this is because they were worried about a leadership challenge. He talked about a psychodrama and, the focus on that being counterproductive. But they're obviously kind of nervous about saying those exact words.
Yeah, they've given a lot of official reasons, haven't they? The cost of a mayoral election, it being inconvenient. And I think it is inconvenient for Keir Starmer to have Andy Burnham back in Parliament. And I think that's why they have chosen to block him. But I don't think there's any other reason, really, even though they won't say that, they won't admit that out loud.
I think the other detail of this, which is just kind of quite interesting for normal people to listen to, is you hide behind, it's up to the National Executive Committee and the rules that the party has in place, the rules that you shaped and set so that you could hide behind them.
And he was on it. And he voted to block Andy Burnham, Keir Starmer, as well.
So I think it does sort of sound a bit rich when you kind of hide behind some of those details. Alex, obviously then a lot of people are saying what might happen down the line. And I guess we all kind of became aware of what the Conservative Party rules were on leadership because there were so many challenges. What are the rules in the Labour Party? How would that come about?
So it's a lot harder. It's not the same with the Tories, who were able to do this quite easily. Had that 1922 backbench committee, which was the mechanism where they could submit letters of no confidence. There's two ways. There's the formal way, which is a challenger coming forward and saying, I've got the backing of 20% of the parliamentary party, if that's 80 MPs. I think the more likely way is a more informal way, which is that cabinet ministers start telling Keir Starmer his time's up and they don't have confidence in him anymore. And it becomes sort of unsustainable for him to carry on, which is what we saw with Boris Johnson. They all started resigning en masse and it became untenable for him to continue.
So I didn't realise it was that low, the threshold. So only 20% of MPs.
So that's 80 MPs now, so it's quite high. It's quite
a lot of MPs, but 20% is not that high. To then trigger what? What would that trigger? A vote of no confidence?
So it would trigger a contest, basically, in which Keir Starmer would automatically be on the ballot. But that is the way that it would happen. Yeah, you'd have to get 80 MPs, which is, I think, quite a higher benchmark, and they did raise it to kind of stop this kind of thing from happening.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess the one person who perhaps is waking up this morning, kind of rubbing his hands together is Wes Streeting, who there's an awful lot of briefing going around in the papers saying that he's got 200 MPs backing him. So that camp obviously think that they could get over the line.
I thought the timing of that was immaculate. So on Sunday morning, there's all these questions about whether Andy Burnham's going to be able to stand, and there's this article. I've got 200 backers. Obviously, he's saying not from me, but his supporters. So it looks good for him at the moment, but I still think maybe this could kick the soft left into gear. They won't want any kind of coronation of Wes Streeting now that one of their key figureheads has just been taken out. So I think, it's all to play for.
Watch this space.
That's great stuff. Thank you. Now, China's top general is being investigated for serious violations of discipline and law. Our Asia correspondent, Helen Smith, joins us from Beijing. Helen, this is really fascinating because we've seen all sorts of purges from Xi Jinping over the course of the last decade or so, including, which grabbed a lot of attention and time, of military leaders over the last couple of years, but no one was expecting this.
Yeah, that's right. This has come as a total bombshell here in China. I think it's really hard to overstate just what a big deal this is. Zhang Youxia, he was China's top general. Not only was he China's top general, he was the top figure within China's sort of military decision-making body. On top of that, he was considered a very close ally of Xi Jinping. The two men grew up in the same circles. Both of their fathers were senior communist revolutionary heroes under Chairman Mao. They were considered strong, close allies, possibly even friends. And the fact that Xi Jinping has gone after this man, of all people, just a sign of how unabashed, really, Xi Jinping is about the overhaul of his military, about the purging of what he is calling the rot of corruption within his armed forces. But look, it raises so many questions. Is this just about corruption? What does it say about the effectiveness of China's military? And crucially, what does it say about the power of Xi Jinping? As you said, the context is really important here. There has been a couple of years of just unrelenting purges within China's military. It has taken down dozens of senior people, generals, commanders, people from the army, the navy, the air force, the rocket force, which is the group that controls the missile and nuclear armory. It's taken down a defense minister, and crucially, it has taken down 5 people within the 7-person governing body that essentially makes the top military decisions. 5 of them. The only ones who are left, Xi Jinping himself and 1 other uniformed general. So it just says so much about the concentration of power within the military. Look, there are some indications this time that this is about more than just corruption. But all we have, of course, crucially, are indications, because remember, the system of Chinese elite politics is such a black box, and it's really important to bear that in mind. But a few potential hints. In previous months and in previous years, when figures of this type of seniority have gone down, usually there's been a couple of months of silence before an announcement was made. This has come really swiftly, just within a few days. So questions about what all that rush was about, what was so urgent and worrying to the government that they needed to take control of the narrative so quickly. And some of the language that's been used as well in official publications, really talking about a threat to centralised control, a hint perhaps that it was Xi Jinping who felt personally undermined in some way. But look, China watchers here and beyond have agonised long and hard about what these military purges say about Xi Jinping's approach to the military. Does it show that he was weak, that he needs to grapple with some sort of organisations against him, that it showed some sort of lack of control? Or actually does it show the precise opposite, that he is just so assured in his control, so confident that he is able to take out even the very top man, and that would not be a problem. Of course, questions as well about what it says about the military's effectiveness. In the short term, perhaps problems, but look, in the long term, Xi Jinping can rebuild, promote people that he wants to perhaps turn his attentions towards the island of Taiwan, the self-governing island that he's long said he would like to retake. But look, certainly for now, really a shock announcement in China, and one that many are watching closely.
Hanan, great stuff. Thanks so much, Hanan Smith, for us there in Beijing. Let's revisit now the top story, the second death of a US citizen at the hands of immigration agents in Minneapolis in a matter of weeks. 37-year-old Alex Pretty was shot during a protest on Saturday. Well, we're joined now by the former US Department of Justice advisor, Charlie Cooper, joins us from New York. Charlie, thanks so much for joining us. My first question, stepping back a lot, is what authority does ICE, the immigration unit that's carrying out some of these attempted deportations, what authority exactly do they have relative to, say, the FBI that we all have heard of? And how has that authority changed in the last year or two?
Wilfred, the authority that ICE is acting under is federal authority to operate in states across the country. And to take a step back, as you suggest, this is a federal operation that allows them to go in and in certain cases supersede local jurisdictions in the enforcement of federal statutes, in this case against immigration, and whether or not various different people in the country are here undocumented and therefore can be deported. Because of that, under certain circumstances, and some of this is being written in real time because we've never seen a crackdown like this or federal action like this in the immigration issue to date, these laws are being rewritten or they're being acted out in real time as federal agents try to figure out exactly how far they can go, and local law enforcement, which is on the hook for keeping the peace and maintaining local law and order, are coming up against them. So right now, federal agents are fanned out across the country, in theory, to pick up immigrants who have violated federal statutes. And at the same time, they're running into U.S. citizens who are operating in those states and in theory are protected by local law enforcement. And those two groups of people are at odds. So in terms of the legal authority, it's evolving as we speak. And I think you're going to see a lot of this end up in U.S. courts. And right now, I think the federal justifications the Trump administration is using, while strong, are going to come in serious scrutiny, certainly given the shooting of Alex Pretty earlier.
I guess my question is, are these officers governed by exactly the same legal setup and rules as a FBI agent or a local police officer? Will there be ultimately the same scale of investigation and with it potentially justice as there is when we've seen high-profile shootings or killings in the past by agents on individuals?
Actually, Wilfred, you bring up the question of the investigations, and this is exactly where local and state authority is coming to a head. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago, Renee Good, a mother of children, was killed by ICE agents while driving her vehicle and allegedly trying to run those agents over, as was testified by federal agents. Her supporters claim the opposite. Immediately, there were calls for local law enforcement to investigate that under local laws to see if she had been wrongly killed. The federal agents stepped in and the U.S. Justice Department stepped in to refuse that investigation to go forward. And at the time, local authorities felt like they didn't have the right to go in. What's different this time in the shooting of Alex Pretty is that more and more officials, both local and even federal officials, Democrats and Republicans, are calling for a full investigation that would involve state authorities. And in that case, the limitations that the feds are trying to put on local law enforcement is going to begin to break down and is going to be tested in court. We'll have to see how it turns out.
What do you make of the reaction to this tragic example and that of Renee Good a few weeks ago? Do you think the political reaction is changing? Perhaps that's the most pertinent question. Republicans in high-profile positions across the country?
Oh, I think the political reaction is quite different than it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and frankly, far different than when President Trump was inaugurated. President Trump campaigned on getting immigrants out of this country who were here illegally or undocumented. As an attempt to do so, he has had federal agents fan out across the country to enforce those laws. And honestly, the Trump people thought that this was going to be a big win for them. Federal agents scooping up swarms of immigrants, carting them off and deporting them in enforcing U.S. laws. Instead, you have federal agents facing off against U.S. citizens. And the two people that were killed over the last 3 weeks, Renee Good and Alex Pretty, were both U.S. citizens. That's a very different image than President Trump and his team wanted to have. Of the few images of immigrants being pulled out in the last 2 weeks, one of them was a 5-year-old boy who was, I believe, either on his way or coming home from school. These are not the images that the Trump administration thought that they were going to get out of this whole operation. And even Republican lawmakers who were otherwise sympathetic to the cause, I think, are really beginning to realize that and are getting pressure from voters in their districts to step up and say, hang on a second, this was not what we bargained for. This does not look like an enforcement action against immigrants. What we have now are federal agents facing off against U.S. citizens, and that was not part of the plan. And I think they're coming under increasing pressure to dial it back.
We've seen very high-profile members of President Trump's administration come out and continually back the job that ICE agents are doing, from the Secretary of Defense to the Deputy Chief of Staff, even President Trump himself on Truth Social. Do they have the full legal authority to do that? Or, as you kind of alluded to earlier, might there now be local cases or investigations that mean their kind of unequivocal backing of these agents is actually misplaced?
Well, what members of the Trump administration say and how that actually plays out in the court of law are two different things. So it is classic Trump playbook to never apologize, to keep going forward, never admit wrongdoing, double down where necessary. And that comes from the top. And you've seen on issue after issue after issue, a unified front of the administration coming out from the vice president to various different cabinet secretaries, et cetera, making claims about what is and is not legally justified, but even beyond that, what they believe is morally justified. They take a high road and they try to claim that what they're doing is in the best interest of Americans, even if there's a lot of opposition to what they're doing. You in particular mentioned the Secretary of Defense. The question is raised why the U.S. military is even involved in this conversation. The U.S. military and its leaders should have no role in domestic law enforcement. There's been discussion in the administration about deploying them under certain statutes. But if we're at a point now where we're talking about sending U.S. troops into states to enforce federal statutes, that's nearly unprecedented in this country. And I don't think that as this works its way through the court system, the Trump administration is going to get the full-throated support that they think they're going to get.
Really fascinating, Charlie. So great to have your perspective on it. Thank you so much, not least because it's, what time does it say there? 3:25 a.m. We really appreciate it.
Happy to do it, Wilfred. Thank you.
Good to see you, Charlie Cooper, there.
3:25, that's impressive.
Well, actually, my alarm goes off at 3:30, so...
There you go.
It's only 5 minutes
Suck
early.
it up.
Yeah, suck it up, Charlie. No, we want him to come back. Thank you very much.
Let's talk policing now, shall we? Because today we're getting more details of what's been described as the creation of a British FBI. So the idea is that a new national police service is going to be created, and it was going to focus on things like counter-terrorism and fraud, so local forces can concentrate more on what they're describing as everyday crime.
Well, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, will be announcing the full details later, which will also include new targets for police forces to respond to 999 calls, in 15 minutes in urban areas, 20 minutes in rural areas. Well, Martin Brunt has all the details for us.
Lots of shoplifting, says the owner of this convenience store, but the police do little to help stop it or pursue the criminals. He's had to install an expensive AI system to alert him to thieves.
No matter how much security and technology we implement, they always seem to beat us. It's virtually impossible to stop them. And it's almost become a free-for-all and a right for them. And, some of them see this as a way of life. And, they're like, why should I work when I can just go out and take as much as I want without any punishment?
7 miles away, this long-established pet shop has a similar story to tell.
Recently, in the last few weeks, we have had a bit of a rise in the shoplifting. It is affecting us quite a bit. Nearly every day now we're seeing it happen.
What's been the police response?
Unfortunately, because the margin of how much they've stolen is not enough, the police will not pursue any more action.
While many crime rates have been falling, shoplifting has surged, up 13% last year. It's one of those everyday crimes like phone theft and antisocial behaviour. The Home Secretary has vowed they'll be tackled much better by new neighbourhood police teams, part of a major restructuring of policing in England and Wales.
I think if people feel that things like shop theft, antisocial behaviour, if they feel like they're going unpunished, which is how it feels across large parts of the country today, it really tears away at the fabric of our society.
The biggest reform will be the merging of the current 43 police forces into a dozen or so mega constabularies, which will focus on serious crimes such as murder, rape and county lines drug supply. And there's to be a new FBI-style national police service.
It will be their job to go after terrorists, serious organised criminals, fraudsters. We need a really agile national service that can keep pace with the international criminals who change their business model all the time.
But not everyone is convinced the major overhaul will work.
I think the problem is they're throwing an awful lot up into the air and seeing what sticks. You're going to have significant disruption in policing for the next 10 years whilst they figure out what these reforms actually look like in practice, merging all of the functions and disrupting local policing in the process. So I think they need to urgently reconsider some of these things.
The new measures will be detailed in a government white paper to be published later today. But the changes are unlikely to be fully implemented until 2034. Only then will the public be able to judge if they feel safer. Martin Brunt, Sky News, South London.
Coming up, we're going to be talking more about Andy Burnham, and we're going to try and find out how it's gone down among Labour MPs and also specifically Labour MPs on the left of the party. I don't think it's a spoiler to say they're not impressed.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back. So Labour's ruling body has blocked Andy Burnham's bid to return to Westminster. I'm just going to give you the official line. They say an unnecessary mayoral election would have a disproportionate impact on party campaign resources ahead of local elections and also elections to the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Senate. So, how are Labour MPs on the left of the party feeling? Now the King of the North has been blocked from coming back to Parliament. We can try and find out. Richard Burgon, who is the Labour MP for Leeds East, joins us now. Good to have you with us. So,
good morning, Sophie. How are you?
I'm OK. How are you? How are you feeling after the Andy Burnham news?
Like a lot of Labour MPs, not just on the left, by the way, and like a lot of Labour members and Labour councillors and Labour voters, I'm utterly flabbergasted and appalled by what the Prime Minister has pushed through, because what's happened is a nasty factionism through banning Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, from standing in a Greater Manchester seat in this parliamentary by-election, has taken priority over beating reform. Everyone knows that Andy Burnham is best placed to beat reform in this important parliamentary by-election. The real challenge we face as a Labour government is ensuring we don't have what I would consider to be the first far-right government in our country's history. And so for the Prime Minister to intervene and push through an NEC officer's vote of voting to ban Andy Burnham beggars belief. And it risks not only a real gift to reform, and it is a gift to reform, it risks not only reform winning the parliamentary by-election, keeping up their momentum, unfortunately, it also risks Labour even coming third. We saw that in the Caerphilly by-election, where people took the conclusion that Plaid Cymru were the party to vote for to stop reform. So it's a real mess. What needs to happen is this decision needs to be overturned, and it needs to be overturned quickly so we can focus on actually winning this important parliamentary by-election.
So it feels a bit to me like allies of Keir Starmer are saying this isn't about a leadership challenge, this is all about, an unnecessary distraction. Allies of, Andy Burnham are saying, no, this isn't about a leadership challenge, it's about beating reform at the by-election. Let's kind of get to the crux of it. You want Andy Burnham to stand so that he might be able to challenge Keir Starmer as leader. That's really what's going on, right?
No, I want Andy Burnham to stand and be able to stand, because it should be the party members in Gorton and Denton that get to choose. They shouldn't be banned from being able to choose Andy Burnham if they want him. I want Andy Burnham to be able to stand in this parliament. It's also
about the leadership, though, isn't it? Come on, let's get real. That's what it's about, really, isn't it? You think that you quite like to have Andy Burnham on the ballot paper if there is a leadership challenge?
Well, at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's about beating reform, and that's what the Prime Minister should be focused on. What he shouldn't be focused on is potential future leadership elections. There is no vacancy. Keir Starmer is Prime Minister. Hopefully we'll do well in May across the board, but part of that is winning this parliamentary by-election in Greater Manchester. And everyone knows that Andy Burnham is the best placed person to beat reform. So for people around the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister himself to intervene to block Andy Burnham and reduce our chances significantly of beating reform is an incredible act of self-sabotage. And it flies in the face of public opinion. A poll has been done of residents in Greater Manchester. Only 8% of people in Greater Manchester agree with blocking Andy Burnham. A third of them say that blocking Andy Burnham would make them less likely to vote Labour. That's not the way to approach a parliamentary by-election. This is putting nasty factionalism before the good of party and before beating reform.
Can I ask, you mentioned there about overturning the decision that was made to block Andy Burnham from standing. How would that actually happen? Because I've read some reports about maybe like opening up the National Executive Committee vote to a wider range of unions, which could get them over the line. Just specifically, what do you want to see happen?
Well, the only 10 National Executive Committee members met, and there's about 40 National Executive Committee members. Only 10 met on a Zoom call, and only 9 voted on this issue. So I do think that a full meeting of the National Executive Committee would be the right thing to do. But let's be clear, this isn't about rules. This is about a political decision. Keir Starmer and his advisors decided that the priority here was banning Andy Burnham from standing, banning the Mayor of Greater Manchester from being able to stand for Parliament, banning local Labour Party members from being able to select him as their candidate if they choose. And this isn't just the left of the Labour Party who are concerned about this. I see that Peter Hain, of course, a former Secretary of State in the Tony Blair government, has said that this blocking is, and I quote, mad and bad. Yeah. People right across the board. I see that Nick Lowles, a highly respected anti-fascist campaigner against the far right who has run Hope Not Hate, he has expressed concerns on Twitter that this decision could risk Reform winning the by-election. This is serious stuff.
Just to come in on that, and look, I take your point about Andy Burnham is not someone who you can completely neatly pigeonhole on the left or the right of the party. But in all honesty, the left needs to get itself into gear now, right? Because at the minute, if Andy Burnham is blocked from standing, it does feel like the most obvious contender in any leadership contest is Wes Streeting, who is not on the left of the party, I think it's fair to say. Do you need to get another candidate in place?
It's not about that. The person that needs to get their act together is the Prime Minister and his advisors, including people like Morgan McSweeney, I'm afraid. They need to get their act together.
Morgan McSweeney.
They need to get their act together because we've plummeted in the polls. Reform are set to win. If there's a general election tomorrow, the opinion polls say that they would become the government. We need to turn that around. And you don't turn that around by banning someone like Andy Burnham from standing. It's no wonder that only 8% of people in Greater Manchester agree with what Keir Starmer has done.
OK. Thank you very much. Always good to talk. Richard Burgon speaking to us there from Leeds.
Now, new changes to cancer screening are set to detect and prevent thousands of cases of bowel cancer.
So the threshold for the results of a home screening kit, which would then sort of trigger further urgent testing, is going to be lowered. In England next month, the NHS says this could help detect a further 600 cases each year.
To tell us more about this, joining us is Fiona Oskin, the Head of Health Information at Cancer Research UK. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So bowel cancer is how widespread, and tell us what this new update is.
Absolutely. So bowel cancer is one of the most common forms of cancer, unfortunately. Currently, it affects around 44,000 people each year in the UK. And this new change really today that the NHS have announced is that the screening test that we have for bowel cancer, which aims to catch it early and prevent some cases of bowel cancer, is set to be more sensitive, which is great news. This means that screening will be even more effective. It will help find more cancers earlier when treatment's more effective and prevent more people from ever being diagnosed in the first place.
Can I ask a bit of a wider question on screening? Because there's been a big debate about prostate cancer as well and whether screening should be offered to people. Your initial reaction is always like, well, why don't we just screen for everything and have a really low threshold to catch it early? But are there any negatives to doing it?
It's a really good question, and it is absolutely a fine balance. So you want to make sure that when you're offering a screening test to people, you're benefiting more than you're potentially harming them. So you need to make sure that things like follow-on tests, the worry of that, the potential implication of tests and further treatment for people that might not have needed them are outweighed by the lives that you're saving and the diagnoses that you're making earlier. So it is absolutely that fine balance.
So I guess it's all about catching things early, isn't it? I mean, that's the biggest thing when it comes to cancer.
Absolutely, which is why changes like today, where we we can refine screening, make it even better at catching those cancers earlier is great news.
And is bowel cancer one that can be treated if it's caught early?
Absolutely. So when bowel cancer is caught at its earliest stages, about 9 in 10 people will survive for 5 or more years. So it is a cancer that really is very responsive to that early detection, early treatment, and people are able to kind of go on and live full and long lives afterwards. So that's why things like screening are so key in trying to tackle the disease.
I was going to say, what is the Cancer Research UK position on prostate cancer, where there's been a big debate about what testing should be made automatically available or not?
Yeah, there has been a debate. Cancer Research UK believes that we should be following the National Screening Committee, which is an expert body that's set up to essentially look at all of that evidence, try and fine-tune whether we can see benefit or harm and what that should look like for screening programmes. And they currently are consulting on what prostate cancer screening could look like in the UK. So we'll be responding to that consultation and are interested to see what their take is on that.
Can I talk about cancer as well? Because it feels as if cancer... it's the most frightening word, right? If you get a cancer diagnosis, I think it can be like such a scary thing for people, right? Because we know what the impact can be. But I was interested to hear there about you talking about the early screening, catching it early, and people being able to live quite full lives with cancer as well. Do we need to, kind of reprogram our thinking about it a bit?
Yeah, there has historically, I think, understandably been that kind of view of cancer as the big C or something that is kind of something people can't live with or live beyond. And that really is changing, and that's thanks to, some of the incredible research and advances that we've seen. It's also thanks to people like Dame Deborah James and other campaigners who've really raised awareness of cancer, helping people kind of overcome some of that stigma and some of the taboos that surround the disease, and helping people both talk about it more and also kind of seek help earlier if they do notice something that doesn't feel right for them.
Yeah, it's a really good tip and advice, just like, if your skin doesn't feel right, just get it checked out, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fiona, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Fiona Oskin there from Cancer Research UK.
Now, the UK and its European allies are signing a new deal today. It's to build lots more offshore wind projects in the North Sea.
The so-called Hamburg Declaration will supply multiple nations powering homes and businesses with clean energy. Our Europe correspondent, Siobhan Robbins, joins us now from Hamburg. Siobhan, I think I'm right in saying that Miliband is there as part of this signing. Talk us through how much it's being celebrated there in Hamburg.
Hi, well, it's definitely being celebrated. Just to give people some background, the meeting that I am at actually started 3 years ago as a direct response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and it's looking at ways to secure energy supply for Europe and the UK. And they say today that they are announcing a historic energy security pact, and essentially what that involves is securing 100 gigawatts of energy from clean sources, so essentially wind turbines in the North Sea. Now, 100 gigawatts is enough to power between 50 million and 100 million homes. And people are saying that this is, in the industry are saying this is great for consumers, that it will push bills down. Others are more sceptical. The other thing that they're announcing today is that the access to that energy will be available for a range of countries through interconnectors. So what's interesting is, given the turbulence in the world, this is really Europe and the UK looking at each other again as close partners, as a way of securing their energy together. Now, we heard just last week in Davos that Donald Trump called wind turbines losers. He said countries that had more wind turbines lost more money. Obviously, this group don't agree with that. They're investing in it. They're moving forward. And that also is because the EU has pledged to totally move away from Russian gas supplies by 2027. So they need to look at new sources. And if you look at countries like Germany, this has been a huge shock to the system. In 2022, they were getting more than half of their energy from Russian gas, and they've had to scrabble around to look for other sources. Now, of course, some of those sources come from Europe. Others are looking to America. But because of the transatlantic relationship also being under pressure, it's potential that they feel more secure working with Europe and other European partners in the UK. And that's why energy deals like this one, they see as a good one. Now, just very quickly, as you mentioned, it's Ed Miliband here representing the UK. I didn't want to let you down. So when he arrived, I asked him what he thought about the fact that Andy Burnham wasn't allowed to
sadly, no response. He didn't seem that delighted to face that question on a very snowy morning in Hamburg. I asked him twice, but no response so far.
Well, great effort. We appreciate it, Siobhan, and great to have you there. Interesting, as you said, that meeting convened 3 years ago, I guess showing quite an interesting cross-party gathering in that sense. Siobhan, for now, thanks so much. Right, on the topic of snowy weather there in Hamburg, let's have a look at the weather here.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
It's looking unsettled all week with potentially disruptive wind and rain and snow on northern hills. It's windy in the west with rain spreading across Ireland. Most other places are chilly and rather murky with a few drizzly outbreaks, mainly in the north. All of Ireland will be wet by midday, while Northern Ireland and Cornwall will see rain edging in. The bulk of Britain, meanwhile, looks rather grey with a few wintry showers, mainly in the northeast. It'll be chilly and windy in the north and west, with gales possible near northwestern coasts. Northern Ireland and southwestern Britain will turn wet later, while the west of Ireland will largely dry up, with winds easing. Expect little change elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
It's an Arsenal game that you want to talk about, right?
I do. I've forced this onto the agenda.
Look,
we've got the sport coming.
Just face it like a man.
Oh, I think I'm being made to.
Yeah, you are. We're going to be talking about Manchester United's shock win over Arsenal at the Emirates yesterday. Amazing goal. I mean, a couple of amazing goals. Credit where credit's due for Man United. I mean, they're looking so good, aren't they, under Michael Carrick these last 2 games. But there was nervous moments for a lot of Arsenal fans as the top of the table is looking, well, it's looking the same, but it's looking a much smaller gap now.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
I'm Deborah Haynes, Sky Security and Defence Editor.
The reality of life under Russian fire.
People don't want to leave, even though help is here to evacuate them. They say they want to sort out their belongings first. It's absolute chaos.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety, as Russian drones will be trying to find this position.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I've been covering Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
When rockets fall, I try to hide my head under my toys.
Illustrating Ukraine's lost childhood, hopes and dreams framed by war.
Conflict in the Middle East is another major focus.
An incredibly dangerous moment.
We saw the missiles streaking across the sky. We saw the intercept going up, and then we saw the explosions when the intercepts were successful.
With global threats rising, I also explored defence and security in the UK and across NATO.
This US aircraft carrier is operating in European waters in a deliberate show of force.
This is routine training for NATO, but should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.
Tucked away in the National Archives are some of the UK's old defence plans.
The scale of this bunker underlines how seriously governments took the threat of nuclear attack and global conflict. Should allies listen to Vladimir Putin's sabre-rattling?
No, they shouldn't, and they don't.
Sky News, the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Right, we're going to get some sports news now. I'm going to introduce this because I feel like it's a bit more of a painful result for the other people around the table than for me, because we've got two Arsenal fans sitting here. And Arsenal lost, Jackie.
Yeah, first time at home this season, only third defeat of the season. First time in 8 years United have gone there and got a win. I mean, Manchester United were really good yesterday. I mean, apart from the first half an hour, first half an hour it was all Arsenal. They got the first goal and you thought, here we go. They're going to run away with it. And it seemed to work in the opposite way. They sort of lost a bit of confidence and got a bit nervy, and United went, OK, let's go. And they just did. We should show the goals because the United goals were just magnificent. They were wonder goals, really. And
Patrick now.
This is
Patrick
worth
Dorgo's
watching.
goal is really worth watching, and a great advert for the Premier League. And Gary Neville said, it's a goal of a lifetime, which gave them a 2-1 lead. And as the match went on, Arsenal getting more and more sort of anxious about finishing and getting something from the match, anything. They got it back to 2-2 with a really scrambly goal. But then came another stunner from Mateus Cunha. I mean, again, another wonder goal. And in fact, they're the first visitors to score 2 goals from outside the box at the Emirates since 2008.
It's a great stat.
Which is a really, really good stat, and just goes to show how good those goals were and how good Manchester United were. But, I don't know what you thought yesterday. Did they look nervous? Did they look anxious? Is the pressure at the top of the table getting to them? I mean, you should be as confident as anything with a 7-point gap at the top, and given the way they've played in all competitions, kind of dominant. But they really weren't. And you just wondered, maybe the Wednesday match against Inter Milan, did that make them a little bit tired? The way United was set out, did that make them nervous? The pressure?
I mean, obviously, the positive spin is we'd have taken this at the start of the season, still ahead. But I think the negative spin, Patrick Vieira nailed in the Sky coverage yesterday, which is, particularly, as you said, after a dominant first 20 minutes, is the sort of lack of mental strength to convert that, which is, and then we get into Sophie's favourite, sadly accurate word with Arsenal, are we going to choke again?
Oh, well, that's
which is what Vieira was kind of getting to.
Said it, not me.
Well, that's what all the Arsenal fans are worried about in the stand. You could just see them going, oh, here we go again, we're going to crumble in the crucial moments. Anyway, that's what Roy Keane was also saying afterwards. Have a listen.
They've got everything going for them. They're doing really well in all the competitions, etc. And that's pressure. They're feeling the pressure. It's how they deal with it over the next month or two. That's what's cost them over the last few years when they've gotten themselves in good positions. And the sign over the last few weeks, now we're going back to the Liverpool game, the Forest game, and today, losing that momentum. If you step back, they'll have to have a reset and still step back and go, we're still in a great position. We've got to get our momentum back.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to win in the Champions League this week and get that sort of, winning feeling going, because, you've not won against Forest, you've drawn. You've also not won against Liverpool, you've drawn, and you've lost that match. So that's not enough points as potential champions, you'd have thought. Or maybe it's just a blip, like you said. All the away teams won yesterday, including Villa, so they keep up the pressure there at the top, just behind Man City on goal difference. But in Scotland, you asked the question... You always manage to find a question that I don't know the answer to. Who was the last non-Celtic and Rangers team to win Scottish Prem? Aberdeen. It was 1985. Guess who was the manager?
Well, I'm going to get probably Alex Ferguson.
Yeah. Wow. It was Alex Ferguson. Anyway, Martin Neal's done a great gun since going back in at Celtic as interim boss. He really stressed before the match yesterday against Hearts, the league leaders, we have got to win this. If we don't, it's going to be very difficult to be challenging. They didn't win it. It was a sort of last-minute draw in the end. They were leaving 2-1, but Hearts managed to get a goal in the end to share the points. And here it is, Gladio Braga with the goal to make it 2-2. And it means that Celtic are 6 points behind Hearts at the top. Rangers won yesterday, and they have closed the gap to 4 points. So a proper title race in Scotland.
Love it.
And you lived in the States. I mean, were you a big fan of NFL? Was the Super Bowl a big thing in your house?
I got into it more than the other US sports. By the time I left, I was really into it. But as soon as I got back here, I completely lost touch.
No, you lost touch. Anyway, so we know who's going to be in the Super Bowl final. So we've got the Seattle Seahawks winning last night against Los Angeles, and New England Patriots have won it 6 times, a record equaling 6 times, beating the Denver Broncos. But have a look at this weather. I mean, this is not the weather you want to be playing Super Bowl in, especially as you pointed out earlier, when you're handling a ball, and it's crucial that you catch it.
So it's, on that, you know what they do all have is, you know how obviously the offence and defence come on and off the pitch a lot?
Yeah.
They all sit on the bench on the side and they put their hands like this.
Yeah.
Because there's warmers.
Heated seats as well.
So then I guess you've got to keep your hands warm for more like 5 minutes at a time as opposed to the whole 2 or 3 hours.
Brutal weather, though.
Brutal, yeah.
I can't believe they didn't call it off. It's crazy.
I don't know, but they very, very rarely do. I think they just have to get on with it.
It's usual, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the pitch doesn't freeze, I think, because it's not grass. I think they almost always have other formats.
See you in a moment.
I didn't hear any of that. What?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Frost.
Right, sure there. With Sophy and Wilf, good morning from both of us. Lots of news to get to.
Another US citizen is shot dead by immigration officers in Minneapolis. And 2 former presidents, Clinton and Obama, say America needs to stand up and speak out, but the White House isn't backing down.
There's anger among many Labour MPs this morning after Andy Burnham's blocked from running to be an MP, which means he can't challenge Keir Starmer for the leadership.
Deadlines for officers to be on the scene after 999 calls and a new British FBI. More detail on the Home Secretary's overhaul of policing, which is being announced today.
Also on the programme, we've got Jackie to talk about last night's Premier League shock at the Emirates. Will's going to be closing his eyes for that one.
Get through the final hour. The curious case of the Chinese general, how a man seen as President Xi's closest military ally, is now under investigation.
Good morning, welcome to the programme. It's been a heavy weekend in America as the country grapples with the second death of a US citizen at the hands of immigration agents in Minneapolis. 37-year-old nurse Alex Pretty was shot during a protest on Saturday.
Multiple videos of the incident are now online, but immigration officials are refusing to give details of their side of events. The incident has sparked protests and a moment of reckoning for people on all sides of the political spectrum. Former Presidents Obama and Clinton have weighed in, saying that the public have been lied to.
Well, we'll bring you those statements in a moment because they really are, quite something worth pausing over. But first, here's Martha Kellner in Minneapolis for us.
Alex Pretty was on his knees in this very spot when he was shot dead by immigration officers. Now people fall to the ground to grieve for him. The intensive care nurse killed while trying to resist the ongoing crackdown on migrants in Minneapolis.
I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling unsafe. And I'm feeling confused because it's all so senseless. It's all so senseless.
How much is enough? How many more people have to die? And to the rest of the world, don't come here. They're having the World Cup here, don't come. Boycott it. Boycott the Olympics. I don't care.
They're doing too much, man, and they keep pushing people,
This video shows Pretty being held on the ground and struck several times with what looks like the butt of a gun. Shot once, then again, and again and again. At least 10 times within 5 seconds. From another angle, you can see federal agents crowding Pretty. He's on his knees. One officer approaches him empty-handed. The same officer runs away with a gun in his hand, moments before you hear any shots. This video shows the aftermath as Pretty's body is being searched. One officer asks, "Where's the gun? Where's the effing gun?" Another officer a few metres away responds, "I have the gun." Pretty had a licence to carry in Minnesota, where it is legal. It seemed he had already been disarmed when he was shot. Yet the Trump administration continues to claim, with no evidence, that he was a domestic terrorist.
He was the greatest.
Buffy worked in a hospital alongside Alex Pretty.
He was just a funny, kind guy. Very dedicated, caring person. So,
how does it make you feel knowing how he died?
Yeah, that's pretty hard. We've been under this state of attack for weeks. I'm paranoid when I drive around, checking vehicles all the time.
In case it's ICE agents inside?
Yeah, in case it's ICE agents, trying to figure out, is that suspicious or is it just someone that lives in Minnesota? It's a constant state of fear. I would say it's an occupation.
Immigration officers have been in Minneapolis for just over a month now. In that time, 2 American citizens have been shot dead. A Venezuelan man was shot in the leg, and a car full of children have been tear-gassed. It's becoming incredibly tricky for anyone to claim this operation is successful. Renee Good was killed by an immigration officer who shot her in the head. In a statement about Pretty's death, Good's family said, "We urge all Americans to trust their own eyes as they interpret the horrific video and to call for an absolute end to ICE activity in Minneapolis. It has clearly gone too far and strayed far beyond its stated mission of removing criminal non-citizens from the country. It is time for a hard reset." But Greg Bovino, the man in charge of Border Patrol here, is insistent that his officers are doing a good job.
Think of what those agents were doing on that scene, making a split-second decision. You've had 24 hours to try and armchair quarterback things. That agent had a split second to make a decision. When individuals make poor choices, poor decisions, come into a law enforcement situation.
Arrest them! I just had 7 AK-47s pointed in my face an hour ago. Do something!
Local investigators from Minneapolis finally arrived at the scene 24 hours after Pretty's killing. They said they had previously been blocked from the probe by the federal government's Department of Homeland Security.
Excuse me, sir, has this crime scene been preserved as it usually would have been in this sort of case?
I can't comment on that, okay.
Have you now got full access to the scene?
We're just here to try to do what we can right now.
Politicians from both sides of the aisle are now demanding an independent investigation. Usually, state and federal bodies would work together in situations like this. Normal rules no longer apply. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Minneapolis.
Well, we mentioned the statements from the former presidents, and they are quite something. They're effectively saying, pick a side. Former President Barack Obama and his wife Michelle issued the following statement, calling it a wake-up call to every American. They went on to say, I would hope that after this most recent tragedy, administration officials will reconsider their approach. Every American should support and draw inspiration from the wave of peaceful protests. They're a timely reminder that ultimately it's up to each of us as citizens to speak out against injustice, protect our basic freedoms and hold our government accountable.
President Clinton's statement read, over the course of a lifetime, we face only a few moments where the decisions we make and the actions we take will shape our history for years to come. This is one of them. If we give our freedoms away after 250 years, we might never get them back. It's up to all of us who believe in the promise of American democracy to stand up, speak out, and show that our nation still belongs to we, the people. As we were discussing last hour, a lot of people wondering if a Republican former president, President Bush, might come out with something similar, because clearly Obama and Clinton are both Democrats. But perhaps more important than all of that is whether current Republicans, lawmakers in Congress, start to change their tune in general towards President Trump, but specifically on this issue. And I think that's the key thing to watch from here.
And at the minute, of course, the Trump administration and the kind of immigration officials both kind of digging in, I guess, not admitting wrongdoing. To the UK now, because the fallout is continuing this morning, I think it's fair to say, after Andy Burnham was blocked from running to be an MP for standing in the Gorton and Denton by-election, and it's left some Labour MPs feeling pretty mutinous, I think it's fair to say.
Let's have a listen to some of Sophie's interview earlier with Government Minister.
Andy signalled very clearly his ambition to lead the Labour Party in the future. I think that's a perfectly honourable ambition. National Executive Committee reached a judgment that the time is not right for Andy to come back to Westminster, not least because he's only served 2 of his 4 years in his second term as Manchester Mayor. And they're allowed to reach that judgment, not just according to the rules, but also looking at the politics. We've got critical elections in the next 101 days. If you're saying it would be better in those elections in Scotland or in Wales or across England to spend the next 3 months having a version of this conversation, you're entitled to that judgment, but I would respectfully disagree.
I'm absolutely not saying that. I'm making no judgment on what is the right or wrong. This is not my, this is not my road here, right? What I'm saying is, I think you should be honest about why the judgment was made, and I don't think you are.
So it's not my first rodeo, and to decide is to divide. Whenever you make a decision like this, those were words used by Tony Blair, there's always going to be an element in politics where people attribute motives to you, give explanations as to why you've made that judgment. There would have been 3 months, in all likelihood, in my judgment, of psychodrama. Who's up, who's down, who's getting on with who's standing against who. Would that have been in the best interest of the Labour Party? Honestly, I don't think it would have been.
So I think that bit at the end of his answer there is probably getting to the closest to what's really going on here. He was saying that if Andy Burnham had been allowed to stand, it would have been 3 months of psychodrama, who's up, who's down. In other words, a distraction, a leadership challenger in the wings that Keir Starmer could need like a hole in the head. Alex is here. There's a flip side, though, isn't there? You can see why they've done it, but it's going to have consequences too, right?
Totally understandable why they've done it, for the reasons that they've given, and also why let someone in who has made disloyal statements, who has sort of suggested the Prime Minister's getting it wrong. But on the other side of the argument, this move has really cemented the negative view of Number 10 that Labour MPs had, that, control freakery, paranoia, over-centralised, and it's annoyed a lot on the soft left, who maybe didn't love Burnham personally, but want an alternative vision, and that's just been stamped out now.
In terms of kind of the damage that it does, I've seen a lot of coverage of this over the weekend, and I guess the most people frame this as it's lose-lose for the Prime Minister, and perhaps you pick the route that will hurt you the least. Which people would say for this was you're going to get terrible kickback, but short-term, and it will go away. And I guess we are seeing that today, certainly. The question will be, give it a week or two, will it die away in a way that, had he been in Parliament, would it have been a permanent thorn in his side?
I think, yeah, this is the short-term pain that we're seeing now, but I think the threats to Keir Starmer are still there. I mean, the PRP, the Parliamentary Party, are really angry, and it just kind of cements his weakness. This is not a projection of strength, in their point of view, and also maybe emboldens Wes Streeting, who's also a leadership challenger, maybe a more preferred one to Andy Burnham, but, yeah, very perilous for Keir Starmer still.
Yeah, Wes Streeting is the one that everyone's talking about, obviously, the Health Secretary. He's seen as a kind of centrist politician, so I guess on the right of the party. Are we going to start to see the soft left scouting around, trying to find another candidate now that Burnham's been ruled out?
I think this is the real danger for them now, is there's no obvious figurehead for them at the moment. Angela Rayner would have been the obvious one, but she's still damaged from the stamp duty row. She's seen as maybe not commanding the same kind of popularity as Andy Burnham. So they're going to be looking around for a figurehead now, and maybe caught off guard.
I tell you one thing is that Andy Burnham's doing a lot of the hard work for some of the other would-be kings, wannabe kings or queens, because, you know, he's causing the Prime Minister a lot of trouble, and they're all going to benefit.
Yeah, that's true. Alex, thanks very much indeed.
Now, China's top general is being investigated for serious violations of discipline and law.
So he's the most senior target so far in a spate of high-level military purges, which sounds very dramatic. Our Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith has been telling us more.
This has come as a total bombshell here in China. I think it's really hard to overstate just what a big deal this is. Jiang Youxia, he was China's top general. Not only was he China's top general, he was the top figure within China's sort of military decision-making body. On top of that, he was considered a very close ally of Xi Jinping. The two men grew up in the same circles. Both of their fathers were senior communist revolutionary heroes under Chairman Mao. They were considered strong, close allies, possibly even friends. And the fact that Xi Jinping has gone after this man, of all people, just a sign of how unabashed, really, Xi Jinping is about the overhaul of his military, about the purging of what he is calling the rot of corruption within his armed forces. But look, it raises so many questions. Is this just about corruption? What does it say about the effectiveness of China's military? And crucially, what does it say about the power of Xi Jinping? As you said, the context is really important here. There has been a couple of years of just unrelenting purges within China's military. It has taken down dozens of senior people, generals, commanders, people from the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Rocket Force, which is the group that controls the missile and nuclear armoury. It's taken down a defence minister. And crucially, it has taken down 5 people within the 7-person governing body that essentially makes the top military decisions. 5 of them. The only ones who are left, Xi Jinping himself and 1 other uniformed general. So it just says so much about the concentration of power within the military. Look, there are some indications this time that this is about more than just corruption. But all we have, of course, crucially, are indications, because remember, the system of Chinese elite politics is such a black box, and it's really important to bear that in mind. But a few potential hints. In previous months and in previous years, when figures of this type of seniority have gone down, usually there's been a couple of months of silence before an announcement was made. This has come really swiftly, just within a few days. So questions about what all that rush was about, what was so urgent and worrying to the government that they needed to take control of the narrative so quickly. And some of the language that's been used as well in official publications, really talking about a threat to centralised control, a hint perhaps that it was Xi Jinping who felt personally undermined in some way. But look, China watchers here and beyond have agonised long and hard about what these military purges say about Xi Jinping's approach to the military. Does it show that he was weak, that he needs to grapple with some sort of organisations against him, that it showed some sort of lack of control? Or actually does it show the precise opposite, that he is just so assured in his control, so confident that he is able to take out even the very top man, and that would not be a problem. Of course, questions as well about what it says about the military's effectiveness. In the short term, perhaps problems, but look, in the long term, Xi Jinping can rebuild, promote people that he wants to, perhaps turn his attentions towards the island of Taiwan, the self-governing island that he's long said he would like to retake. But look, certainly for now, really a shock announcement in China, and one that many are watching closely.
Helen Smith there for Beijing. Going to be busy in the next couple of days. Of course, the Prime Minister's making his trip out to China imminently. After the break, we're going to be speaking to Esther Jai, whose daughter Brianna Jai was murdered aged 16, about a letter that she's a signatory on to the government to support a ban on social media for under 16s. That's coming up next.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Welcome back. Campaigners are piling on the pressure for Sir Keir Starmer to do something about the dangerous content young people are accessing online.
We've been covering it an awful lot on the programme, and the campaign groups are only kind of stepping up into gear. A group called the Bereaved Families for Online Safety have now written to the Prime Minister. They're led by Esther Jai, someone who you might remember, her teenage daughter was murdered by 2 children. And the letter says, I speak not only as Brianna's mother, but alongside many other bereaved parents who've lost their children to harms that began or were amplified online. Some have lost children after they were groomed by online predators, others through dangerous online challenges, and others following prolonged exposure to self-harm and suicide content. Again and again, parents describe the same pattern, children being drawn into online spaces that normalised exploitation, risk and self-destructive behaviour, often hidden from the adults who are desperately trying to protect them.
Meanwhile, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has written to schools telling them to be phone-free. She writes, "I've always been clear that mobile phones have no place in schools. I know many of you feel the same, but it's clear that the previous guidance did not deliver the clarity or consistency that schools need or help enough in setting out for parents that this is a clear national position. That is why we've strengthened it to be explicit. All schools should be phone-free environments for the entire school day. That includes lessons, time between lessons, break times and lunchtime. It means, for example, it's not appropriate for phones to be used as calculators or for research during lessons."
Well, we can speak now, I'm very pleased to say, with SGI. Thank you so much for being with us. It's great to speak to you again. I know how much work you've done in this area. Just to start off, I just wondered if you might be able to explain why you felt compelled to write this letter in the first place.
Thank you for having me today. And yes, so I decided to write this letter because I feel that things are starting to move in the right direction, but I think that we're just not going far enough with it. There was an amendment that was voted through the Lords last week that over 60 Labour MPs had put their names down to support the social media ban for under 16s. From my experience with Brianna, she had really severe mental health issues, like from the age of about 14 up until her death, where she was self-harming, she had an eating disorder, and it was only after she passed away that I found out that she was accessing harmful content online and speaking to people who were encouraging her to do this. In September, I also launched a phone-free education campaign calling for a statutory ban of phones in schools and to provide funding for resources for head teachers. So, yeah, there's so much going on at the moment. And you know what? I think things are moving in the right direction, but maybe the government just need a little bit more of a push to take things further.
And with that in mind, you want the Commons, the government, the members of Parliament to support the amendment that the House of Lords has backed?
Yes. So this will now go through to the Commons. It got voted through the Lords. It was a majority vote. This will go through to the Commons. I'm not sure when it will be through, but I would really urge MPs, Labour MPs, to vote on this. Also, there will be a vote in the House of Lords on the 3rd of February. This is around phones in schools, and I would really urge cross-party peers to vote this through as well. It's great that the government have announced a consultation, but it makes me worried that whilst we're waiting for this to happen, more and more children are going to be harmed, and we need something quick, and we need something, something really serious to happen.
Bridget Phillipson today's written to schools, kind of updating the guidance, saying that phones shouldn't be used throughout the school day. Do you welcome that, or I guess are you kind of frustrated that it's just a strongly worded letter rather than like a legal ban?
I think it's a move from what they were saying previously, that this is something that we don't need. I don't think that it necessarily goes far enough. I do think the ban needs to be statutory. I hear from head teachers all of the time that they need more support. They have pushback from parents, pushback from students. And if they can say that the government this is law, the government have said that they need to do this, then it gives them the freedom to do what they need to do. Also, I think that it's not very clear whether they're going to have an out-of-sight policy as a recommendation. We know currently that 79% of secondary schools in England operate an out-of-sight policy, and we know that this doesn't work. Children are taking the phones out in classroom, messaging each other underneath the desk, taking photographs of each other. There's a new trend that teachers are telling me about called muggies, where children are taking pictures of other children and zooming in on the face and ridiculing them on social media. So there's absolutely no place for phones in schools. And yeah, I think that head teachers just need real support on this. They also need funding to resource this as well, because that's another thing that I hear from head teachers. They don't know how to do this, and they haven't got the money to be able to enforce it properly.
It's so amazing to have you on talking about this, given your personal experience. And I just, if I may, wanted to dwell on how important it is to have national bans, not just to help school teachers, but to help parents. We did a review last week, 6 weeks on from the Australia ban, and it's clear that for that cohort of teenagers who already are using social media a lot, they don't welcome the ban. But I guess this is both to help parents enforce something that they might have wanted to do anyway, but also protect kids of the next generation who aren't yet on social media, to make it something that is not a norm.
Yeah, I think from my experience, Brianna was completely addicted to a smartphone. She was addicted to social media, the impact this had on her mental health, but also her school life. Like, she was on a reduced timetable due to behaviour issues around phone use. She, as a parent, like, it was so difficult. I was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. She's more and more isolated because she's not attending school. So do I give her a phone so that she can access social media? But then one time I took a phone off her, and she had a phone taken from her for about 2 weeks, and the improvement in her mood was absolutely, like, it was so amazing, and I felt like I had my baby back again. Like, she was this joyful, loving child again, that not the angry, depressed child that she was when she had a phone. For parents, it's so difficult, especially because the age is 13 at the moment. So once the child reaches 13, they're constantly battling with the parents to say that they now want social media. And, you know, I would go as far to say as well that it's not a social media ban, it's liberating children from social media, because currently they're spending 35 hours a week on social media, which is the equivalent of a full-time job. And we know that the way that social media companies make money is through our attention. So it's essentially child slave labour. So we need to liberate children from these platforms and allow them to live in the real world again.
Can I just say thank you so much for being so open about your own sort of parenting experience and what Brianna went through. I'm sure that will resonate with an awful lot of parents, you know, watching, and I can't really imagine how difficult it must be sort of talking about this stuff, but you've done an awful lot to really try and build a legacy for Brianna. So, you know, thank you for that.
Oh, no, thank you. And yeah, all of the work that I'm doing, it's in Brianna's memory, and it's because I don't want other parents and children to go through what we went through. And I hear from so many people all of the time that they are really struggling. And this is why I would really like support from the government, because we need it in this current time.
Esther, thanks so much for joining us. Much appreciated. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we'll be diving into all of the latest political stories with Sam Coates. Will be with us. Welcome back. A reminder of the top stories this morning. As we've been discussing, Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham's bid to throw his hat in the ring for a return to Parliament has been blocked.
So we understand the Labour's National Executive Committee, which is the kind of body that decides all this, voted 8-1 against him coming back, and the PM, Keir Starmer, also voted against it. But there's an awful lot to unpack here. We've got Sam Coates, a deputy political editor, with us, I'm pleased to say. So, no Burnham. I think that the thing that gets me about this is that Team Starmer are saying, oh, it's nothing to do with the leadership challenge, we just don't want this costly by-election. And Andy Burnham's like, oh, no, I'm very, very loyal. It's just because, you know, I just really believe that I should try and fight reform. It is about leadership, right?
It is. This is about leadership, it's about prime ministerial weakness, and it's about Andy Burnham's ambitions. And there's no two ways about it. And when you push anybody privately in Westminster, they'll admit that. And I think you're right. The tone that some people take publicly is one of the reasons that Westminster gets on people's nerves. But look, yesterday, Keir Starmer and 7 colleagues on the National Executive Committee voted to block Andy Burnham from standing in the Gorton and Denton by-election, vacated, which is up after Andrew Gwynn, the MP, did a deal to stand down. Now, Andy Burnham has made no secret of his long-term ambition to become Prime Minister, and at this point, where it has to be said, Keir Starmer is floundering in the polls, floundering amongst his colleagues, I think they did smell in Downing Street danger, and they had to weigh up which was the lesser of two evils. Do you allow him in, maybe give him a ministerial job, try and bind him in, buy yourself more time, but see this very popular figure amongst Labour's members? He outpolls anybody else for the leadership. We know, we've done the polling, and risk, at a moment of turmoil, him going to try to grab the crown? Or do you block him, saying, look, you're doing a really important job in Manchester, you're only 2 years in, and we think that's important. Truth is, they could lose that as well, and it could go to reform if the mayoralty did actually go up for re-election.
Flip it on the other side, from the perspective of a wannabe leader in Andy Burnham. Isn't he doing the hard work for others?
In the sense that he is, he is, first of all, advertising the politics of weakness around the Prime Minister. So, yes. What I think the events of the last 36 hours have done is weakened the Prime Minister yet further. It may have been the lesser of two bad choices, but in the end, saying we can't risk a Metro Mayor election because we might lose it. We can't risk a figure. You know, I think when the Prime Minister talks after 10 o'clock this morning, he'll talk about not wanting the psychodrama of Andy Burnham to distract from the Mayor elections. Well, let me decode that for you right now. One could turn that on its head and say this government isn't resilient enough and confident enough to cope with a big beast who has slightly different views on the sidelines or maybe even the middle of this government. And I think it's a testament to that. But ultimately, I think your point is the right one, Wilf, because for all of that, Andy Burnham won't be in Parliament. Angela Rayner, well, she's another possible contender, but she hasn't really sorted out her tax affairs. Ed Miliband says he doesn't want it. I actually think the winner of all of this over the last few days is Wes Streeting, another potential contender, the Health Secretary.
Can we talk a bit about how a leadership contest would come about, right? Because it's not straightforward, is it? I guess we know that the moment of peril is the May elections. If Labour does badly there, which we're expected to, that is when we could see a challenge. But how would that actually happen?
Well, there are actually two moments of peril. What I learned overnight is that this by-election might come in early March. It might even come at the end of February. And if Labour go down to a catastrophic defeat in this seat, which is, you know, potentially splits all ways with a Gaza issue running strong, the Greens, a reform challenge, you know, could reform come up through the middle? What would the Labour Party's reaction to that be? Then you've got Wales and Scotland. Wales, where they could come fourth, Scotland, where Labour could come third. So you have these moments of peril. So how does it happen? Well, there's the formal route, and that would involve 80 Labour MPs signing the nomination figure papers of arrival, so a Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner. And then a contest would automatically take place with Keir Starmer on the ballot, and Labour members would then vote.
So it goes straight to Labour members at that point, then?
That's right. However, one of the things that I think we've learned over the last few years is that the formal mechanism is often not the way that it happens. The formal mechanism, as you saw under the Tories with those letters going into the 1922 chairman, even if which would often see the Prime Minister win, was simply sort of rotted away the foundations of that government. And in the end, it's like a cabinet delegation going in to say the time's up, you've got to go.
Men in grey suits.
The men and women in grey and or the more colourful suits go in and say, sorry, we can't up with you. We cannot put. So there's a range of ways it can be done. It takes overwhelming force, though. Now, the anger is real. People last night were saying the Rubicon has been crossed to me. Some of the names of the people who the Labour MPs have gone on the record about this very dangerous. People who used to work in Keir Starmer's office, for instance. But have we reached a critical mass? I think it's going to take a couple of these real-world defeats for Labour to have before we start to tip over into something that is genuinely perilous for Keir Starmer.
Just to go back to one court point, if we have that kind of leadership battle, you have to be an MP?
Yes.
And so
yes.
Andy Burnham has no way, if it happens in the next 6 months, no way of being on the list?
No, under the Labour Party rule book, 2026 rule book, which we've all got on our bookmarks now, he has to be an MP, hence the enthusiasm. One of the reasons, I think, little interesting point. I did a deep dive into what happened at the National Executive Committee and what happened in the hours running up to it. It turns out that number 10 was going to Andy Burnham, look, you can become an MP, just wait until next year, wait until 2027. But we'll back you to do that, just not this year. It's a very controversial decision, though, for Keir Starmer. He has taken on Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Lucy Powell, his deputy, all of these figures. Even Shaban Mahmood hasn't backed him. But at the NEC yesterday, he made this plea for his career personally. He has put himself on the line in this fight against all of those Labour MPs and others. He's saying he's doing the wrong thing.
Bit of good news for Keir Starmer, though, because Sam's got a suggestion for who to run in Gorton. Genius suggestion.
Which we all agree with.
I've sorted it. Great news. So you need somebody who was and is the face of Manchester. You want somebody who is definitely of the left, somebody who's a media magnet, who everybody, the camera will be drawn to, somebody who grew up hanging around Gorton and Denton Market as a kid. Who should it be? Liam Gallagher.
Oh, I love it.
Why not Noel Gallagher?
Oh. He would be the David Miliband of this situation. insurgent Liam.
Very quick.
Would just get the back, he's just slightly the underdog, the less establishment figure. Is the kind of grit that you need at this uncertain time, Wilf.
You get a lot of coverage for his campaign.
Quick, get him in.
Great stuff, Sam. As always, thank you very much. Right, wanted to talk a little bit about the price of gold, which was unequivocally the chart, the story of 2025 when it comes to financial markets. And it's fast becoming the story of 2026 as well. The headline today is that gold prices have hit $5,000 US dollars for the first time ever. In fact, they've also hit 5,100 for the first time ever, such as the short-term surge. Here's a 5-year chart of the price of gold. You can see that the price has really taken off in the last 18 months or so. Year to date, so just this month of January, it's already up 16%. And that follows last year, in the calendar year 2025, a surge of 65% for the price of gold. A reminder, this is just a metal. It doesn't really have a use. A little bit it's used, of course, for jewelry, but in large part, it's just a block of metal with no earnings. It doesn't pay you any interest. To see it move to the extent that it has in the last 18 months is really quite astonishing. Let's dive into the more recent performance in the price of gold. This is just over the last 12 months, the last year, because what really stands out isn't just its surge, up, 86% in 12 months, it's its surge relative to other core assets. We talk all the time about AI and NVIDIA and these stocks that have taken off like nothing before. Well, let's compare gold over the last 12 months to US share prices, and you really see how much it has outperformed, far surpassing all of these AI moonshot stories in the last year. But perhaps more important, because gold, as I said, doesn't have earnings, doesn't have a particular use, it's more seen as a backstop currency. Let's compare to what it's done over the last 12 months compared to the US dollar, and you see even more starkly why everyone is talking in financial markets about gold at the moment. It is swamping the performance of all other assets. The dollar is down, gold is up. And Sophie, that comes back to sort of the core reason as to why it's performing so much is people are losing trust in currencies, most notably the US dollar, but also the pound, also the yen, also the euro, and gold is becoming this safe haven asset of choice in light of a lot of global uncertainty.
Yeah, what exactly, I mean, I know it's kind of obvious, but like, what is that, what's driving it? What is that kind of global uncertainty behind it all then?
The biggest factor is all of those countries. We could mention Japan, top of the list perhaps, France, UK, but most notably the US. Everyone is worried about their debt piles. All of those countries in different dynamics has more debt than they can really afford to pay off in the short term. That debt they're paying off with their own currency, and increasingly they are printing more money in order to meet their demands. So people are losing faith in those currencies. And what do they go to when paper money is just being printed out of thin air? They go to something that you can't create out of thin air, gold, and that's what's really driving it. Of course, we should make very, very clear that this is not financial advice, and typically, of course, a bad time to buy is after a very strong run, but that's what's happened in the last year or so.
Just makes me think of pirate ships and treasure chests and stuff.
Well, we should probably switch job and go and try and steal gold, because it's going to pay a lot more.
A little story we wanted to bring you today is quite interesting, this one. It is all about a class ceiling, particularly in the arts. One report out today claiming working-class people really struggling to break onto the scene. It's something that we've reported on, you know, numerous times, isn't it, I think, throughout...
yeah, I think this particular report came from the Chancellor of Manchester University, and they'd dived into this in more detail. We did actually speak to the head of BAFTA last week, specifically about this. And it's an area where I think, I'm trying to summarise some of her answers from last week, huge advances in prior decades that have completely plateaued in the most recent decades. So something to definitely keep an eye on.
Now, schools, businesses and also governments, frankly, are grappling with how to use artificial intelligence. It's, I guess, the big challenge of our age.
We're joined now by Victor Ripperbelli. He's the co-founder of Synthesia, an AI video startup who are one of, if not the leading AI startup in the UK. Very good morning to you, Victor. Thanks for joining us.
Morning.
And you guys have an announcement today. So you've just completed another high-profile funding round.
That's right. We just closed our Series E, which is $200 million at a $4 billion valuation, which is obviously very exciting. And we're going to double down on building AI video, which we have been for the last 8 years. Got a lot of new product announcements to come, a lot of people to hire, and very excited about the opportunity ahead.
I want to talk about your product specifically in a moment, but more broadly, you're relatively rare to be a $4 billion plus AI company and based here, as opposed to the United States. Why do you pick to be based here? Or, in fact, are you considering moving, like so many others have done?
So I think, you know, when I founded the company like almost 9 years ago, it was sort of more by happenstance. I ended up in London, to be honest. I grew up in Copenhagen, Denmark, and moved here. But the UK has a great foundation of talent, both specifically in AI. We have some of the best universities in the world, we have the capital markets. And in Europe, I think it is the best place to build a company, right? It's very important for me and for my co-founders to remain in Europe and to prove to the world that Europe can build globally leading companies. And I think, look at us, look at companies like 11 Labs and a bunch of others. We're actually showing to the world now that we can lead. You know, we're leading in our market, 11 Labs leading in their market. So while I think there's a lot of things to work on in Europe and in the UK, I think we are starting to see signals that we actually can build a functioning tech ecosystem.
What do you feel the government here is doing right, and what are they not doing right to encourage more successful AI tech startups like yourself?
I think what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years is much more engagement and the feeling of the government being allies and everybody wanting us to succeed, which I think sort of contrasts a little bit maybe the first 4 or 5 years, but I think most entrepreneurs have this feeling that the government is somewhat kind of an adversary to some extent. So I think that's really great. I think there's, you know, things about like talent, for example, that's just been announced recently. That's, of course, like one of the most important components of building a great company is how easy it is to bring in exceptional people from the outside. So there are right things happening. On the negatives, I think things like the recent wealth tax, exit tax that's being discussed right now, those are discouraging if we want people to come to the UK and build their companies here. There's 1,000 millionaires who've left the country since the non-dom scheme has been removed. And I do think that some level of wealth tax makes sense, but I think it's really important to figure out where that should apply. What kind of behavior do we want to encourage? We want to encourage people starting companies, building new innovation companies, more kind of old school rent-seeking behavior from people who may not contribute as much to the UK economy, that I understand better. So, yeah.
Talking a bit about your specific product, obviously, as you said, you're a world leader in video AI, generating videos, without humans involved. Often when that comes up for us, we're talking about deep fakes, where people are using technology, presumably not yours, to impersonate someone without their wishes. I mean, this happened to our own reporter recently, quite high-profile case with Yalda Hakim. I guess the first question I have on this technology is potentially very dangerous if it's not used in the right way. Is that fair, do you think?
For sure. I think every technology used by bad people can do bad things, right?
And I guess my point on this is you guys are the leaders on this. How hard is it to use it in the right way and still be a leader in it?
So we took a decision 5 years ago to build for businesses, build for the enterprise, of which a huge component of doing that is building with trust, right? So we build our company on an ethical framework, which is consent, control, and collaboration, which essentially ensures that you cannot misuse the platform. And I'm very proud of, if you look at our track record, I think we've been very good at reducing any kind of harmful use. So I think there are some trade-offs. Maybe you could grow faster if you have less guardrails and people can do more kind of viral clips and some of the things we're seeing in social media right now. But I also do think that if you talk to most business leaders, with the kind of people that we're talking to, they want to work with companies that they feel they can trust and who does the right thing. So I think it can both be a pro and a con, right? But ultimately, I think, given where we are today, I think it's been the right strategy, and I think it's one that everyone in Synthesia is very proud that we've followed.
So step away from Synthesia, your company, and what you guys do. How much of a problem do you think we're going to have as a world with deep fakes over the next decade? And how will we track it to try and capture when something's fake versus not?
So we'll have to, we're already kind of there right now, right? But we'll have to accept and understand that just because you see something on the internet doesn't necessarily mean you should trust it. Just like if someone writes something on the internet, doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And there'll be a lot of challenges around this. I think the key one is education. We can do some on social media, which I think is very separate from what we do as a business. But on social media, you can show people, you can tell people if something has been generated. It's not perfect, but I think it's a good start. But ultimately, I think it's a lot about education, right? And one of the ways of educating people is to have them use these tools themselves. That is the best way of figuring out what is actually possible, how do these things work, just like a lot of people today use tools like ChatGPT. And I think, what we're doing, working with enterprise, doing kind of, all the good things you can do with this technology, I think also helps people understand the art of the possible, right? So as important as it is that we build technologies that can help flag these things, remove content that, shouldn't be online, it's equally as important that people use these tools because that is the best way of understanding what the capabilities are, and both for good and for bad.
Victor, thanks so much for joining us. Congrats again on the funding round. Great to see you, Victor Ripperbelli there.
Let's take a check now, shall we, on how the weather's shaping up.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, it's looking pretty unsettled all week with potentially disruptive wind and rain and snow as well on northern hills. It's windy in the west with rain spreading across Ireland. Most other places are chilly, a bit murky, a few drizzly outbreaks, mainly in the north. All of Ireland will be wet by midday, while Northern Ireland and Cornwall will see some rain edging in. The bulk of Britain looks pretty grey with a few wintry showers, mainly in the northeast. It's going to be chilly and windy in the north and west, with gales possible near northwestern coasts.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
What have we got coming up?
You know what we've got coming up, brace yourself. Arsenal losing at home to Manchester United. I don't think many people saw that coming, but United looking, well, they've got the mojo back, looking very United-y. We'll have that after the break.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Time for the sport. We're going to talk about tennis, skiing, NFL.
You're wishing that
cricket.
We could talk about those things, aren't
That's
you,
it.
this morning? No, we're not. We're going to talk about Manchester United really getting their mojo back under Michael Carrick and beating Arsenal at Arsenal. And I think at the end of that match, when some of the fans were booing, and there was real sort of disbelief trying to absorb the fact that they'd lost at home for the first time this season. And also the fact that, yes, we're still at the top of the league by 4 points, but that should be so much more. There was opportunities in the last few weeks to really sort of stamp your foot down and really kind of almost wrap up the title, and the Arsenal haven't done that. They've draw, defeat. But, I mean, what can you do about these goals from United? They were absolute wonder strikes. This was the first one to put United 2-1 up. Patrick Dorgu, goal of a lifetime. That's what Gary Neville said in commentary. It kind of was.
Yeah. Can't argue with that or this.
No, and you can't argue with this either. Mateus Cunha, again from outside the box with an absolute stunner on 87 minutes. And that after Arsenal had got themselves level and they thought they were going to get a point. And then that happened. And it's United that walk away with all 3 points. So Arsenal 4 points clear. Manchester City won, they're second. Aston Villa won, they're third, but only on goal difference. It should be so much more, and it isn't. And is the pressure getting to them? Were their nerves yesterday? It looked like they were.
Yeah.
There was doubt, there was angst.
There's, a long way to go. I mean, my own view is it's a long way to go either way. So,
yeah,
I'm not sure. I think anyone that was sort of counting victory already was getting ahead of it. So I guess for the neutral, it's going to be a great title race. Not as good a title race, potentially, as in Scotland.
Yeah, but I mean, again, there is a title race, and it's a three-way title race. It's not just Rangers and Celtic. It's actually Hearts leading the way, as they have done all season. This is a crucial match. Martin O'Neill, Celtic interim manager, said, we've got to win this to have any chance of bringing them in. They didn't. It was a 2-2 draw in the end, which keeps Hearts way out in front. Rangers won, though, so the gap is actually cut a little bit to 4 points, but, 6 points for Celtic to make up now. Rangers still have to play Hearts. So that will be a key game. We should also mention NFL this morning. I know you lived in the States for a while. I don't know how big you were into it, but we know the Super Bowl finalists. Super Bowl 60 will be the New England Patriots, who've won it a record equalling 6 times. They won yesterday, beating the Denver Broncos in Denver. In these conditions, they will play the Seattle Seahawks. But, I mean, my goodness, that's not ideal, is it?
Yeah, that's a bit of a chilly environment, that, for any sport, particularly one. Needing your hands. Jackie, great stuff. As always, thank you so much. We are out of time here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sky News Today, up next.